What's going on? Good happy Monday from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. It is Super Bowl week, and the sporting world is flocking to Las Vegas. But we'll start on the other side of the country where Washington's putting together its staff. Dan Quinn, the new head coach of the Commanders, finding his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator this weekend. And Cliff Kingsbury, whose deal fell through in Vegas, and Joe Witt Jr., who follows him from Dallas. The Pro Bowl was also this weekend, seeing Eli Manning and the NFC take down Tom Brady and the AFC 64-59. But more importantly, Peyton Manning gave his thoughts on Brian Callahan and Derrick Henry potentially working together in Tennessee.
Brian Callahan would love Derrick Henry and vice versa. I know there's obviously the business side of it that comes into play, and that's for Rand Carthon and staff to decide. But Brian Callahan appreciates a good running game. His dad's coming over. Dad's the best line coach in the NFL. I know he appreciates a good back. So it'd be a great place for Derrick to continue to play, in my opinion.
And in college news, a New England legend is heading to the college ranks. That's right, Bill Belichick's son, Steve Belichick, is headed to become Washington Huskies' next defensive coordinator. Steve has been in New England since 2012. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome into a Monday edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Hope everyone had an awesome weekend and have a big week ahead of us. Getting it started, as always, by our friends at 8th and Roast. 8th and Roast Coffee, cultivating community by the cup. You can always find your favorite retail bag in Kroger, Publix, Whole Foods. Also, 4 locations around Middle Tennessee. If you want a good jolt this morning, make sure to hop in and see our friends at 8th and Roast. Alongside our 11-year NFL veteran, we have Mr. Ramon Foster in the house. Behind the glass, he's back on this Monday morning. It's Robert Walsh. And I'm Kayla Anderson. Will Bowling is traveling back from London, where his Arsenal team got a big win, 3-1 over Liverpool. And crazy enough, that's the hotel we stayed at in London, Ramon.
Yeah.
And he actually went back and stayed at that hotel for this trip. And I wake up and I see video. It's the official team hotel.
Is it really?
For Arsenal, for the women and men.
I did not know that, Kayla.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
So he got to see him, like, leaving for, the game. And they did, like, how you guys do for the Vols walk.
Absolutely.
Obviously a lot smaller, but they were, like, coming out of the hotel. And I'm going, Will, did you know they stayed at the hotel? He goes, well, I found out it was the official hotel.
Golly, that's big time. Talk about the luck right there when it's your team. The Gunners, man. And Will is a huge Arsenal fan. So what that he's made me somewhat of a Arsenal fan. Well, I'm really not a fan. That's my club that I claim. Right. That's what I'll probably say. I'll let Will know. Like, that's my club that I claim. Not necessarily a fan, but if you ask me who am I a fan of, I'm going to say Arsenal. The Gunners. Here we go.
Exactly.
That's neither here nor there, though. Because I'm not really a soccer watcher like that.
I'm not the biggest one either, Ramon. I'm really not. Now, I'll appreciate a good match.
No, I appreciate the sport and growth here.
Right.
I love all of that. But the fact that I don't
watching it like overseas and the time changes, I'm with you on that.
Definitely. I'll definitely get to a Nashville SC game even more so this year. But besides that,
it's tough.
But Will, I'm sure, is in heaven because of that.
Oh, my goodness. And especially with that win.
Yeah, I'm sure, man. 3-1, you say?
3-1.
Shout out to the Gunners.
Right? Let's go, Arsenal.
I got to do that just for Will right there. Shout out to the Gunner, our club.
Exactly. How was the weekend? I heard you got a lot done, and Bert I'm glad he's back safe and sound because he said he was driving back last night.
I hate that drive through the Carolinas for him. But my weekend was solid. Got up early Saturday morning, had to go take the kid to practice, run some more errands with him. My oldest, that is. Oh, this weekend took a huge step. Huge
girlfriend?
step. No, hey, I told him
He's like, step back, Kayla.
We chase the main thing, that's the goals of grades and sports.
Yeah.
I promise you the girls will follow afterwards. That was one of our recent conversations right there. But he drove us around Hendersonville.
No.
My oldest did. Sure did. Saturday morning, I let him drive me to school, too. Well, we got off on the exit 199. What is that, the old Hickory exit?
Yep.
Got off there and parked at that BP, and he drove us to school, drove me to school with him on the main road with traffic on a Saturday morning, which it wasn't crazy traffic, but he was side by side with a car and stayed in his lane. You want to talk about trying to keep it cool? Kayla, as a parent that's teaching your kid how to drive.
I can't imagine.
Do you understand? So he drove Saturday morning. I told him when we got to the house, I should have let him drive us home, once we got to Hendersonville and off the interstate, but I didn't. And it's so funny, at that age where you're eager to drive.
Oh, yeah.
We went and picked him up something to eat, and I was like, man, I should have let you drive to the house from the restaurant. He was like, can I drive right now? I'm like, hey.
Let me out of Dad. Let me out.
Calm down. But that's the good stage to be at, though, because when you're eager to learn how to drive but not like super hype, that's cool. And after church, he drove us from church traffic, which was insane.
That's actually pretty good, yeah.
To Costco. And got to Costco, and he drove us back home, too. So I'm to actually excluding my wife from this conversation. I'm excluding her from the conversation because she's in the backseat just nervous, not wanting to look up at the road.
Does she say anything, or does she kind of just like, okay,
mouse.
So she doesn't say anything.
Quiet as a church mouse, Kayla.
She's just praying back there, like, just let us get it to our destination safely, right?
Yeah, but he's at the age now, or 15, got to finish actually getting the permit, too.
That's what I was going to ask. It's so different, I feel like, from at least when I got my license. I don't think we could drive at all until we literally got, like, I know, I think I remember my permit, but I don't know the laws and rules around it. It's so long ago. You
know what I did? I actually failed my permit test.
Did you?
The first time around. I failed the written test, man. And you want to talk about the most embarrassing, in my high school
Did your friend say,
life,
what's going on, Mo?
But I was still driving around. I could still, my mom would let me drive here or there, or my granddad would. It definitely let me drive places. But I didn't actually get, so I never had the permit. And I only got my license when I turned 18. Because Tennessee changed the laws. You either got a permit from 15 to 18 or whatever it is, or something like that.
From me.
But you can get your official license at 18.
Okay.
So I just waited till I was 18 to get my license.
I also failed my driving test the first time, but it was because my mom thought that she could take me to Podunk, this little town she grew up in North Carolina, to get my driver's license because it would be easier. I wouldn't be running into all the trials, and really it was an easy test, but the problem was it was also an old-ass parking lot, so I pulled back in after the test. I had parallel parked, done the three-point turn, all that good stuff, and when I pulled back into the parking lot, I pulled into a handicap spot, but it was so faded you could not tell that this was supposed to be a handicap spot. And also, the population of this town was like 50. All the handicapped people were still in their damn house at this time, but the dude failed me on the spot for parking in a handicap, so I had to come all the way back to said town to do my driver's test the next week again. But, Moan, a tip for you when you're teaching your kid how to drive, just don't be hammering that ghost pedal in the floorboard. Because my mama about put a Fred Flintstone hole in the bottom of the car.
You could feel her
trying to hit that gas pedal, man, or hit that brake pedal, man. I'm in control. Yeah. If you don't want me to drive, then don't let me drive. Yeah. It's that easy.
And I don't want to be that dad or parent that sends them to driving school.
Right.
Because I'm just like, there are certain steps you make as a parent, and this is one for me where I'm like, if you're going to learn how we drive, okay? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, if I don't take out the time to do it, I can't complain about your driving style if I didn't teach you. So
that's true.
As the more and more you get comfortable around the city, and then I'm going to put them on the highway, it's probably like a Saturday or Sunday morning, though.
Yeah, do that. Definitely on a Sunday morning, I feel like would be the best, right?
Yeah, but Bert, Kayla, I had my invisible steering wheel, just slightly because I don't need them to see I'm nervous. I had my visible seat belt, my visible steering wheel, and my foot was moving left to right. It
Sure.
really was.
No, I'm glad though that he's looks like he's doing well. He looks like he's not going to do what you did and fail.
No, he's going to pass.
He's going to pass.
He's going to pass.
But you know
his
what?
test.
You learn from, you're like, this is what dad did. This is what not to do
Yeah.
when you get to that spot, right?
Oh, my God.
At least you can teach those lessons.
Tell them to make sure to watch that daggone parking spot. That'll get you every time.
Watch the parking spot. If there's not a lot of paint that you can see. And you know what? I've actually almost done that like in around town too, where it's so faded. Like, I guess I should look at the post that's up there too, but sometimes I'm just looking, at the parking spot. Oh, it's open.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I park in them all the time. You're gonna have to come get me, man. I see way too many people
at the door here.
I see way too many people
Right?
just parking in them that ain't handicapped. So somebody give me a sticker,
like,
man. Somebody give me
Unless
some
you
help.
catch me, I'm parking. Oh, my goodness. Well, we got a great show for you guys today. Coming up at 6:20 here right off the break, we're going to talk about the Senior Bowl. What stock went up, what went down. Ramon Foster was there most of the week.
Yeah.
He's going to give us some of his insight. 7:20, Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com. She broke the news of Bill Callahan joining his son Brian Callahan's staff. She is an incredible journalist. She will be coming up at 7:20. Joshua Perry, our good friend from NBC Sports, to talk a lot of college football and his thoughts on Mike Vrabel, because he actually played for Mike Vrabel when he was at Ohio State. And then at 9:20, what will be Callahan's biggest staff hires? We discuss that much more. You can always join the conversation. 615-737-1045. We'll talk a little Senior Bowl when we return on Ramon, Kayla, and Will.
Valentine's is coming. Are you looking for the most thoughtful, most romantic gift for the one you love this Valentine's? 2 words for you: Genesis Diamonds. Maybe it's a simple pendant or an exquisite one-of-a-kind designer ring. Genesis can help you pick out the most memorable and special piece of jewelry for the occasion. And to make it even sweeter, now to Valentine's, whether you spend $199 or $199,000, Genesis will give you some chocolates, fresh flowers, and dinner out at no charge. This is a great deal, okay? It's a one-stop shop, ultimate Valentine's experience when you buy any piece of jewelry from Genesis. They will give you some beautiful flowers from Jenny's Flowers, some yummy chocolates, and a gift card for dinner at STK Steakhouse. So stop wasting time. Get to Genesis Diamonds. They've got a spectacular collection of memorable romantic gifts from $199 to $199,000. And right now, they're going to throw in some chocolates, flowers, and dinner at no extra charge. Happy Valentine's Day from Genesis. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Welcome back into RKW on this Monday edition. Kayla Anderson, Ramon Foster. We've got Robert Walsh behind the glass. And we've got a little bit of Senior Bowl to talk about because, yes, it wrapped up this weekend as the national team beats the American team 16-7. Obviously, so much work that goes on during the week. That's really when you get a majority of kind of the breakdowns of these players, or at least if their draft stock is rising or if it's already falling, which is never a good thing. But in the game in general, I was talking about the national team beating the American team. Spencer Rattler, of course, the South Carolina quarterback, he got the MVP. He worked the first 2 series of the games. He completed 4 of 4 passes, 65 yards, a TD. Tennessee's quarterback, Joe Milton, completed 9 of 13 passes, but really struggled to get anything going, Ramon, and had 2 interceptions in this game. It's a bummer to see because I know Joe has all the tools, but to me, a situation like this, when you're at the Senior Bowl and then, you've got the GMs, you've got the head coaches down there, you're trying to help your draft stock and make people look at you not just about being that, guy who can throw it this far or that fast. How maybe crucial was this week and for Joe Milton, and maybe now not in a great way?
It was big for Joe in a good and bad way. You saw the measurables and stuff that everybody speak about when it comes down to his game. But you're right. One of those interceptions I saw he threw, Kayla, it was just like, run it. Just run the ball. Oh, Joe, why are you passing it? I'm talking about the pass was so low, and it was a heck of a play made by the defensive back in that situation right there. But it was an interception that he did not need, that he actually threw to the DB in those situations right there. Again, 9 of 13 or 8 of 13, whatever his stat was, ain't bad, but it looked like it was on the struggle bus the entire time, man. Again, that's why I've been saying as of late, since Joe somewhat graduated, like now you got to be an NFL quarterback and show and prove. You're right. He has all the intangibles. It's just like having a pitcher that throws 100. What good is that 100, Caleb, if he can't hit the square?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like if he can't throw it over the plate, and that's what Joe is right now. I thought going into this week, as far as Joe Milton and what we knew about him and the hype behind him and what he's done, right? I thought Joe was a 3 to 5th round pick, 3rd to 5th round pick. A backup type is what he's going to be, somebody that needs room to grow. After this week, I look at Joe's situation, depending on what team's needs are, 5 to 7. Like a 5th to 7th round. I'm not sure if I'm taking them before the 5th if I don't have to, because the tools just aren't there. And at some point, you got to get the computer to calculate enough. You got to get the computer to compute enough to give you the answer that you think are inside. What good is having a program, Kayla, or having all those tools if you can't use it properly? That's my thing. Again, he'll have time to run and throw, and the Tennessee Pro Day can help him out a whole lot, but I don't think he did a whole lot to help himself. He made a couple of good plays in practice this week, we were watching them at quarterback, and there was a screen set up. And one of the things that you want from a quarterback to see how good they are in other situations is not about hitting a touchdown every single time. Sometimes we live for the next play, and the running back was covered up, and instead of Joe scrambling or trying to find something down the field or forcing it to a running back for a negative play, he threw it into the dirt. So I'm like, great quarterback decision right there. But all in all, I don't think he helped himself much at all. But I'll say this, too. I saw Spencer Rattler got named MVP. I didn't see a lot out of him either. So this is going to be a fascinating storyline, watching the quarterback story envelop. I want to see who they're going to try to push up, what narratives are going to be painted. I'm not sure if Bo Nix is going to be the guy, Drake May. I'm not sure who's going to be number 3 or number 4 as far as first-round quarterbacks, but I personally wasn't overly impressed with the QBs.
Yeah, and real quick, Bert, before you chime in, I just want to say with the quarterback situation, I feel like we were all hyping up, at least I was, quarterbacks this year, like, oh, it's another quarterback draft where we're like really impressed. I really feel like after that showing, like with Penix and Nix and Rattler and Mick, I don't really feel like this quarterback draft, besides those 3 at the top, with Drake May, Caleb Williams, and possibly Jaden Daniels, I'm kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah, that's where I am with it.
With Joe Milton not really helping himself, do you think he did anything to hurt himself? Because this was kind of the narrative around him coming into the Senior Bowl, coming into the draft, that he was this athletic specimen. When I'm looking at his positional percentile scores for height, weight, arm length, hand size, all that jazz, the lowest percentile he has is 84. He's like built in a factory to play quarterback, but it's his decision making.
Yeah.
So, like, do you think he's still a draftable prospect? Do you think somebody's still going to take a swing on him?
Yeah.
Or is this something where his showing is going to leave him wishing he'd done a little better?
When it comes down to that size and measurable stuff, I'll just bring up Brock Purdy. I'll bring up Tom Brady and how they look and stuff like that. It's great to set, you know what I'm saying, like you said, Bert, the guideline into what it's supposed to look like, because he does look like he was made in a factory somewhere. But the play is all that matters at the end of the day. I mean, Drew Brees, do I think he hurt himself this week, Bert? Yeah, I do. I don't think he gained much traction when it came down to him elevating his stock and creating a buzz around him. And for instance, I love people that understand their situations, and I'm all for building up your profile, but he completed a pass one time, and I think it was like pre-practice stuff. Or individual. We had individuals, and I think you had you had pre-practice and individual. He was throwing to the wide receivers and running backs and stuff. He completed a pass. You know what he did, y'all? Did a standing backflip.
Oh,
Just like, man,
dang.
gosh, I wish I could do that. But I also saw this guy complete a 8-yard out. Like, come on, let's play that game right there instead of a standing backflip. I'd love to be able to do a standing backflip. I don't care if I have to use my hands to somersault me over. He did it, no hands touching, with a football in his hand.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. That guy is an athlete. Like, he is a specimen. Like, it's just that, like Robert said, like the decision making, that when you put it all together at a consistent level, I think that's the questions you have about Joe Milton. Like the consistency, how much can he grow? And I just feel like as a quarterback.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there kind of is a ceiling, and you've kind of seen it.
I would say this without the stereotypical undertones and stuff like this. I'd much rather him almost play another position, but I don't know if he can play another position, meaning wide receiver or tight end. I don't know if he can, because he's been a quarterback all his life. So it's hard to put a square into a circle. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the way I kind of view him. But at some point, I'm hoping with the growth. And here's the other thing behind Joe for me, is we're going to talk about other prospects here.
Yes.
Is this for me? He spent 6 years in college already. So the timeline of patience going to the NFL is just like, if you don't have it into your 6th or going into your 7th year as being the oldest guy with all this experience, then what are we getting ourselves into? We've had on the break here the conversation about the back end of the draft and what is that going to mean for teams. Like, you're really going to have to package some draft picks close together to get some high quality, because the conversation has been this is a lower back end talented draft.
And that's what worries me, because the Titans don't have a 3rd round pick, and I'm still kind of just like, I wish that there was a way that they could trade down and get a 3rd rounder, because that's such a crucial round. I feel like to get at least one more guy that could really be a starter, Yep. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. So another guy, and you loved him this week, and he had a good game. And by golly, he actually was a menace for the American team, which he was supposed to play on and then switched over last minute. They had to make him go to the national team. We're talking about Florida State defensive tackle Braden Fisk. He was a menace this week. He was a menace in the game. 4 tackles, half a sack, had a pressure, led to an incomplete pass. Like, he was just as good as he was in practice in that game. Like, that was one of Ramon's crushes, and, man, he continues to show out.
He was, and just showed up in a lot of different ways. At the line of scrimmage, he can move around. He was getting to the running back when he had the ball. Braden Fisk is a Western Michigan transfer this year that ended up going to Florida State and absolutely catapulting that team and defense to an undefeated season. I know what happened at the end of the year was insane, but Rhett had a comparison to him. Rhett Bryan did. He called him, a different version of Carl Klug with a little bit more personality.
That's right. I loved that description.
That's what he called him. And the reason I loved watching him is because I didn't know who he was. But we're watching the one-on-ones, we're watching the team stuff that they're doing against one another, and he just kept showing up. And this is against, I thought the interior was solid, especially the centers and the tackles too. And he was just beating folks left and right. And I was just amazed to watch a guy I had never heard of. And I know he played for Florida State. But Braden Fisk is going to be probably a mid-round guy that's going to bring a whole lot of just pain to whoever he's facing. He understands he's somewhat, I want to say, undersized. He's not really undersized. They have him listed at 6'3", 295.
Okay.
So he's not like a 6'4", 310 type of guy. But his side-to-side shiftiness and quickness within the box is going to be a great compliment. Maybe not the immediate starter, but he's going to be one of those two deep D linemen on your team that you're going to absolutely love to have. As far as young talent, he has a lot that's barely been tapped into. And you also got to consider the fact he went from dominating at Western Michigan to actually playing really, really, really good at Florida State.
Robert, I know you've got a crush.
Yeah, I do.
You've
have
got
a
a
crush.
Senior Bowl crush.
Every time this year comes around, man, just like when I was in school, I can't contain myself to one woman. I can't contain myself to one prospect.
It's Valentine's Day. Come on.
I got to bring it all together. But Ramon and I share a very special love for interior offensive linemen for very obviously reasons. Big boys ball around here, and JPJ this weekend made himself some money, Ramon.
Yeah, he did. Jackson Powers Johnson, the law firm. Do you
Out of
understand
Oregon.
me? Out of Oregon. That is one thing I did go into the week. So I will say the Pac-12 has a good bit of linemen. There are others that are in that conversation too. Kingsley Siamontiai is another one. Tali Fuanga is another one too. But if you throw in Jackson Powers Johnson at center, we've been discussing here at the show, what do you do with Brewer? How do you go and move forward with Brewer? Now, there's another, I think, BB, I forget where he's out of.
Kansas State.
Kansas State center is pretty good, and Cedric Van Pran is pretty good. As far as the Georgia center and also Charles Turner III out of LSU to have some good centers too. There will be options, but the situation that you have to deal with here in Nashville with the Titans is this. When it comes down to our love affair, Bert, you know what I'm saying? When we talking sweet nothings into this draft pick as far as Jackson Powers Johnson, the bad thing about this is the word is out. Everybody know he had a monster week. Everybody know that he is, 6'4", 334, and moves like a cat. He holds his base good. He did somewhat get rolled up at the game, but I don't think it was anything that was super that was going to end up being an issue or hurt him. But they have him listed at 6'3", 334. When I tell you he's probably the fastest interior lineman movement-wise, it was impressive. He holds his anchor well. He moves left to right well. His snap was good. The only issue that you have is if the Titans take a tackle at 7 and don't move back, can you live in a world with this fan base?
I know. Say it.
Can you live in this world where you take a tackle and then you also take a center. And knowing you don't have a 3?
Yep.
How does that make you feel?
If you had a 3, Ramon, then I might be like, all right, let's just get it done with. Let's just draft half this line, have some anchors in place, and then let's get like a cornerback or something in the 3rd round, and then we'll work our way down. But they don't have that 3, and it makes you really uncomfortable.
I don't know. I'd be pretty tickled, man.
You're just gonna stoke the fire, baby.
If you got those two dudes, Joe Alt, who I believe is the tallest tackle in this draft, and then JPJ, who is the heaviest center in this draft. So you would make all the metrics people happy. I don't know, man. I think I'd be pretty tickled with that.
Peter?
Another thing about JPJ, he just turned 21, January 23rd.
Dang.
Young cat. So the dude just can drink now for the first time, man.
That's amazing.
You'd have an offensive line for the next 10
sure you want him in
years.
Tennessee?
Yeah, bring him on.
Yeah, you do.
That boy ain't
him
got a
off
beer
Broadway,
belly
though.
yet. Get that boy bigger.
That's what I'm telling you. Hey, Bert and Devin Mills in the F&M Bank chat, man. Shout out to y'all in the F&M Bank chat. He brought up your other crush. You mind divulging how you feel about the dude
Not
from
Keith
Texas?
Sweat.
Not Keith Sweat. But
another one.
T'Vondre Sweat.
That's my other dog, man. Anybody that comes into these drills and looks like they don't want to come to work, it's like, man, I don't want to be here, but I'm gonna put somebody on their ass
Yes.
today. Every rep looked like he was like, this is the only shot I'm gonna get, so I better do it. And I just got a fascination with nose tackles who could pass rush. This dude looks like he just sees that grindstone and he just would like to put his nose on it. I love guys like that.
I see this, and Devin, they got him at 6. What is his weight and attributes? They have him
346. He's standing at 6'4".
my God.
the height though. Do you have his height
Yeah,
pulled
standing
up?
at 6'4".
Yeah.
6'4", and I think he's probably hovering 360, 370-ish. But let me tell you this, it don't look like it. It doesn't. He got a belly. He got a big boy belly. Okay, I'm going to throw
Nothing
that
wrong
out
with
there.
that.
But as far as the calves, as far as the uppers, as far as his paws on his hands, like his probably peak level weight to show who he's going to be as a pro is probably hovering 335, 340. And that's probably ain't going to happen this year. It's probably going to happen next year as far as him shredding a little weight. But here's the thing behind him. He's big, but he's agile. He gets up the field. He was the first one in line every single drill. When it came down to one-on-ones, you know what he was going to do. Like, it's people that try to get outside of themselves. Like, bro, you a shooter. Like, why you shoot three-pointers and jumpers? Why you trying to dunk now? Like, your specialty is to shoot. Get better at that. Like, his is, I'm going to bull rush you down the middle of you and collapse his pocket.
You were showing me that video. My goodness.
There's value in a person that knows who he is. He walked out on that pre-practice field. You hear me? And just, Bert, to your point, look like, man, I don't want to be here, but I'm here. Watch me do work. Like, he was happy to be there. He's very charismatic, and he embraces his size, Kayla. Like, when it came down to
He knows what he is.
They did a guard center, one-on-ones versus D tackles, like run blocking. He won every single time. This is 2-on-1, and he's dominating. But it ain't just him. There's so many other dudes I had written down, man. Max Helton, Rutgers, DB. There's a D tackle out of Auburn, DJ James. Tyler Fuanga, I already told you about. McKinley Jackson is another D tackle. And Marshawn Nealon. Missouri players showed up big time.
Missouri players, there were a lot of them, too, at that Senior Bowl.
They were. But again, I wasn't overly impressed with Jordan Morgan this weekend.
He was the Arizona
He was
guard.
Arizona. If you search his name,
Or
there's
tackle,
a
excuse me.
picture of him. There's a video of him on X, Twitter, just getting obliterated. Like, he had a bad series,
That's not a
Kayla,
good...
of 3, like, guys touching the quarterback.
Yeah.
Guys touching the quarterback. He getting pushed back. His base and foundation wasn't there.
And he was great this season. I mean, helped Arizona, really have one of their most historical seasons yet, but protected a freshman quarterback that came in and just tore it up in the Pac-12. So this is the thing, though, Ramon. You have weeks like that in a place like this where you have all these GMs, all these coaches watching you all week long. Like, your stock can drop that quickly.
It was. Another guy that will go up real quick. I know we're up again. Jamari Thrasher, wide receiver out of Louisville, had a good week. Speed's going to be crazy, apparently. Jaheim Bell, tight end. I thought tight ends weren't a high spot at the Senior Bowl this year. Simply were not a high spot.
They were last year, remember?
They were last year. And there's some good corners in here, too. Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo is probably going to be a second-round type of cornerback. Told you Max Melton a second ago. Cam Hart out of Notre Dame is pretty solid.
Hey, my guy from Washington State helped
Washington
himself
State.
a lot. Chow Smith Wade. He had 2
Yep.
INTs in that Senior Bowl.
He did. And my other crush before we go, Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, I know. I
And the
hate
slide,
him.
Kayla.
I can't stand that. You know what?
and the
But
slide,
I
I
understand it.
love
I
Ricky.
understand it.
Pretty Ricky, what they call him.
Well,
I'm telling you, Ricky had a.
if he can do it at the next level, you go, boy. But he's just one. He just gets under my skin.
See, I love this though,
He
Ramon.
gets
You got
under my
all the
skin.
tea, man. This is what I need. I've been reading about draft all weekend.
Man.
I shook off the bug. Now I'm fully into off-season mode.
And
man.
there's another center too. Zach Frazier out of West Virginia is pretty solid. He had a good week too. The centers and tackles were the highlight of the line to me. But yeah, Caleb, Pretty Ricky, man.
Ricky Pearsall. And he went to Florida. Why do you like him? He went to Florida.
I can forget when they become pros. I can forget about everything else they did.
Not a pro yet, though.
Yeah.
We will actually pick Joshua Perry's brain a little more. He's got some draft knowledge as well, covering the Big Ten this past year. So we'll have some questions for him. That's coming up at 8:20. But coming up next, Derrick Henry at the Pro Bowl this weekend. He spoke with the NFL Network about his future and if he's met Brian Callahan yet. That's coming up next on RKW here on 104.5 The Zone. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson for the Wang Vision Institute. And if you're looking to get your eyes checked out, maybe for the first time in a long time, this is a place to do it right here over on West End. The doctors are incredible. Everyone from the front desk on, they'll take care of you and they'll make sure that your eye health is good to go too. I went in there a couple months ago, did the full checkout, did some things in terms of what the future might hold for my vision. So that's really good too. They'll get you hooked up. They also take care of you when it comes to your skin. Have you heard of intense pulse light treatments? If you haven't, really simple treatment, photofacial treatment actually. It rejuvenates the skin. Maybe you had sun damage or you're seeing those dark spots kind of pop out here now that you're older. These treatments also even out your entire skin tone and texture and deal with hyperpigmentation. So for more information on IPL treatments, along with other services, you can simply visit wangvisioninstitute.com. IPL treatments, they take about 20 to 30 minutes, then you're out the door. So super easy and really cost effective as well. They also offer a free online vision seminar that happens every Tuesday at 6:45. You can RSVP, you can schedule that free consultation and your treatment today at wangvisioninstitute.com. Your skin and eyes will thank you for the long-lasting results. Welcome back into RKW on this Monday morning. Hope you all are driving in safely to work today, and we'll keep you, I guess, up to date here until you get to work. And then you can just turn us on and stream us, right? On anywhere you find your streams, and that is Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch.
Twitch, please.
You can join us on the F&M Bake Chat, or you can call us 615-737-1045. We love to hear from you as we talk about NFL today. We got a little Senior Bowl talk, and I don't know if y'all watched any of the Pro Bowl games over the weekend, because I know that some people are just completely out on it, and some people like the changes, but the NFC ended up defeating the AFC. They had the flag football game yesterday with a little bit of the skills mixed in, like between the quarters.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it's entertaining for the most part, just because it's different. You get to see some of these personalities come out a little more, but it's not the same Pro Bowl that we all grew up with. It's so much different, but that's just the day and age I think we live in when it comes down to it. But Derrick Henry on Thursday night in the dodgeball contest completely obliterated people. Like, he was I was like, did he play baseball too? Because like the way that he was just throwing these balls and knocking people out, like, this guy just continues to impress you no matter, what he does. And he ended up talking with NFL Network's Cameron Wolfe, who actually worked here for a short period of time covering the Titans. He talked to him before yesterday's game, and he was asked about his future. This is what Derrick said.
Yeah, I haven't really got much into it, just because it's still a little bit early for me. But right now, just enjoying every moment and until that time comes. And then when that time comes, dive into that and then make a decision.
Obviously, you've been a Titans legend. I think your jersey should be retired there once it's time. They have a new head coach in Brian Callahan. Have you had any conversations with him about maybe what that looks like, if there's a chance for you coming back?
No, I haven't had any conversations with him, but I heard good things about him. He's done a great job at Cincy when he was there. Talked to Peyton, and he had good things to say about him. He spent time with him. And, just seeing what the future holds, and then whenever that time comes, we'll see what happens.
What do you think? You still think Derrick's gone, or you think he has a chance to be sticking around here?
I still think he's gone.
Yeah?
That's my personal opinion. When I haven't had any extra conversations or anything with anybody, it's just he said his goodbyes and what he wanted next year. Now, unless his market is low, which I doubt it because it's Derrick Henry, unless his market is low, like people want to only offer him like a 1 for $3 million. That's the way he come back to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't see it. I love to know where y'all are at.
So I thought this was interesting. I don't know if you saw this. And again, PFF is not the book. It's not the end all be all, right? I agree with you on that, Ramon. You've said that many times. But it was funny because I saw something from PFF Fantasy and Betting last night, and it was best landing spots for free agents. And guess who the Titans were matched up with?
I think I saw that one. It was the cat out of Vegas.
Josh Jacobs.
And
so I just retweeted. It was like, what do y'all think? And people were like, no. And they're like, if you're going to do that, just keep Derrick Henry. But I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts. Because do you feel like no matter what, pairing up with Tajay Spears, you need another back, right?
Yeah, you will.
What do you do?
There will be options. There's great free agency options, too, in that group. I think they get a veteran guy, probably a 1-year deal, some nice to help be the thunder to Tajay's lightning. That's where I am with it. I could even see him drafting somebody, but that'll be a later round guy that has to grow up. And again, the back end of this draft is somewhat not the best quality. We'll see.
Yep.
The scouting departments will be tested this year.
They really will be. And so you hope that Rand and Brian are going to be in cahoots with that one, because this draft, like every draft really should be, is crucial.
Do you want Derrick back?
It's hard. It's hard because I don't think it necessarily fits this moving forward. But then I heard Peyton Manning speak, and we played that at the top of the hour as we were going into our news headlines. And he's like, I think Derrick would be a great fit for Brian Callahan. Bill Callahan, his dad, knows how important it is to have a back like that. So now I'm like, well, I don't know what to think.
Yeah. Would you sign him?
If it was for the right price.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that's what I'm looking at.
Right.
Well, when we return, we're going to switch gears a little bit in hour two. We'll have Kay Cabot coming up at 7:20 to talk a little Titans and what she thinks of Bill Callahan because she covered him a lot up there. But we're going to talk a little hoops because Tennessee getting a big win over Kentucky.
Yay.
Oh, did I just say that? Kentucky on Saturday night. We'll get into that and why they possibly now could be a number one seed. What bracketologist analyst is saying that? That's coming up next on RKW here on 104.5 The Zone. Hey, are you sick and tired of those achy joints? Dread the idea of surgery? I think most people do. Well, you need to call QC Kinetics today. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson. And listen, the state of healthcare always changing. We all know that. And the old ideas like steroids and surgery are no longer your only options. And that's a good thing. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative, non-surgical, drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. So let's say you have the knee pain, the back pain, the shoulder pain. A lot of it popping up at this time of the year because maybe you have an old injury or you've got that arthritis. Don't let the pain keep you from living your best life. QC Kinetics advanced state-of-the-art treatments harness and direct your body's natural ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. This is a revolutionary approach that can get you your long-term relief and no downtime. That's the best part about it. So make 2024 the year you reclaim your mobility, reclaim your independence, walk and run and play and live without danger and trauma of surgery and without harmful drugs. So call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation, 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024.
What's going on? 702. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. It is Super Bowl week, and the sporting world is flocking to Las Vegas. But we'll start on the other side of the country, where Washington is putting the finishing touchings on its staff. Dan Quinn finds his OC and DC, one in Cliff Kingsbury, whose deal fell through in Vegas, and Joe Witt Jr., who follows him from Dallas. And in the Pro Bowl this weekend, we saw Eli Manning in the NFC take down Tom Brady and the AFC 64-59. But more importantly, Peyton Manning gave his thoughts on Brian Callahan and Derrick Henry potentially working together in Tennessee.
Brian Callahan would love Derrick Henry and vice versa. I know there's obviously the business side of it that comes into play, and that's for Rand Carthon and staff to decide. But Brian Callahan appreciates a good running game. His dad's coming over. His dad's the best line coach in the NFL. I know he appreciates a good back. So it'd be a great place for Derrick to continue to play, in my opinion.
And in college coaching news, a New England legend is headed to the college ranks. That's right, Bill Belichick's son is Steve Belichick, is headed to be the Washington Huskies' new defensive coordinator. That fantastic mullet and that lip full of chaw. Steve has been in New England since 2012. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Happy Monday morning and welcome into another edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will, where the sun is not yet shining, but it is supposed to be in the 60s this week. So at least you don't have to go out and, get all the snow off your car. And that's always a positive. It's always a positive that we are brewed up by 8th and Roast, our friends with 4 locations all over Middle Tennessee, 8th Avenue, Charlotte. We've got 2 in the airport now, Midtown. So if you're maybe taking a flight out today, go ahead and get yourself an 8th and Roast coffee. And they have great pastries as well. We had some last week. Always getting us brewed up alongside our 11-year NFL veteran, our Vol for life. It's Ramon Foster.
Yay.
Robert Walsh is back and ready to go on this Monday morning, spinning the hits behind the glass. I'm Kayla Anderson. Will Bulling will be back tomorrow as his Arsenal squad got a big win over Liverpool this weekend. So he'll tell us all about that tomorrow.
Are you guys ready for him to come back and just be like, what's going on, isn't it? Spotted tea and crumpets. It's going to be insufferable the amount of British lingo he's going to drop on us.
Do you get, we went to London, but it was for such a short time. I wouldn't have picked up on lingo, but I feel like the more and more you take trips over there, the more and more you're picking up lingo.
Yeah.
I'm watching some show right now, and you guys are all going to laugh, so I'm not going to get into detail, because sometimes my head has to get away from sports because it literally consumes my life in a good way. But I sometimes like that trash TV, and I'm watching one specifically from Australia. I'll just give you that hint. So I'm actually starting to say things now.
In the down under voice?
Yes! With the lingo they use.
Oh, no, not you.
I know. She's supposed to be so much better than us, Bert.
I'm making sure I won't make it come on the air, though. Okay?
You know why I don't do different lingos and just pronounce accents, Kayla, is I might say the wrong words, okay? You don't want me saying the wrong words on this radio, okay? It's just don't leave the accents to somebody else is what I tell myself.
Yeah, I'm not good at them anyway, so I'm not going to try. But they also have different lingo in Australia. So they call things different, like your mate or, things that we would say that would not be good to say. They say, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So,
there's one in particular that was Bert's old pastime that I was just like, you call it a what?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I know G-Town from T-Town in the FNA Bake chat says, crikey, Kayla.
Crikey.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
I would actually like to visit Australia, though. Never been. would be a cool place to visit. We always like you to visit with us on the F&M Bake Chat. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and Twitch.
Twitch, please.
You can also call us 615-737-1045. He beat you that time.
Did.
You didn't think it was coming this early,
I
did
did
you?
I
not.
know.
I didn't think the gremlin woke up yet, man.
Dude, Bert's getting up earlier now. So 8 o'clock used to be like he has risen. But now it's 7 o'clock.
He has
It's a
risen.
new year,
out.
new year, new me.
Hey,
New
we're
year, new
getting
me.
closer to more daylight outside. That may be why.
Always a
I
plus.
think so.
Yes, y'all know I'm a huge winter person. I love.
You like the winter.
I love the winter
Why didn't I know this about you?
because in my playing career, all my life up until 2020,
Right.
every year is outside training from 6th grade on up. Outside training,
That's
the
right.
heat, this humidity and hot. So when it came down to the wintertime, I was able to slow down. That's when, okay, all right, I'm in the house. I ain't got to go nowhere. But now since I'm retired and I ain't got to train outside all summer long for hours upon hours, I do enjoy being in warm weather. So
Yeah.
it's been somewhat cool for me. So now I enjoy the sunlight and stuff like that.
Plus, you know my dude looks great in layers.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I'll be putting that on.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
He's got
you
the
gonna
hat
tell
on,
me?
right? He's got the beanie on and the sweatshirt.
Bert be trying to hype me up, Kayla.
He's your hype man. He's Ron's lawyer. He's your hype man. I mean, he's like doing double duty here for the bros.
I hit him up this weekend because me and my wife was just flirting basically what we was doing.
Right.
And just joking around. And out of nowhere, I just started yelling, scoreboard! Scoreboard!
Oh, no. If you haven't heard that story, let's just say Cheyenne did not get high grade for that one.
No,
Not
she
get a-
did. But that's when I'm winning in the house, is all I'm yelling. We call it Cheyenne now.
Oh,
Well, that's
no.
good.
I ain't never telling her that.
good.
You're going to make her head too
I
big.
love it.
We were home with her family this weekend, man, and it was just too much
asked about the ring?
Cheyenne praising. Too much. Well, they're all Cowboys fans, so if they wanted to hit me, I got them back. You know,
Ooh-wee.
all the whole next year gang. That's what I call them.
The all-in gang is what Jerry Jones called it. now.
Exactly.
We're all in.
Well, it looks like the Tennessee Volunteers are all in right now because it was an all-in effort on Saturday in Kentucky. And guess what? The Vols have now won after that 103-92 beatdown. The Vols have now won 4 times in Rupp Arena during the Rick Barnes era after doing just that 4 times before Barnes arrived. So obviously Barnes, the Kentucky killer up there at least. And I'll tell you, I'm talking about the all-out effort. It wasn't just Dalton Connect in this game. We talked about Zakai Ziegler and Josiah Jordan-James a week ago and how those guys both needed to step up, right?
He did.
And they did it, both with 26 points each. Zakai Ziegler with his second double-double of the season with 26 points, 13 assists, Ramon.
Yeah.
I really was impressed by this effort from them. And Joe Lunardi now is saying Tennessee should get a number 1 seed.
That was a big win. Of course, they got to double that back in Knoxville in the Bama game. Of course, I mean, I think they have Bama left. No, yeah, Bama left again to play. But yes, 100%, they got it, man. And again, the father of Lexington, also Rick Barnes, just got to throw this out there too, Kayla. 11-9 at UT versus 7-1 versus top 10 Kentucky teams. 7-2 when both teams are ranked, and 4-1 when both teams are ranked in the top 10. Also for the group, and I know they've been there for a while, and Calipari somewhat said this, a very veteran group. I don't know if that was backhanded or not by him and his presser leading up to it, but a very veteran group is what he kept saying. But that's because of Josiah Jordan-James and Santiago Vescovi too. But they have 3 wins at Rupp Arena. My brother Renardo went to Louisville, so there's a shared hatred there.
That's
Calls them
right.
Corrupt Arena, okay?
I like it.
Either way, it was everything that you need. But I got to give credit where credit is due real quick before I go down this kitty cat hate week, okay? The young freshman, Rob Dillingham. Somebody said it looked like he hoops coming out of a YMCA. He looked like he does just pick up on Saturdays because he shoots like he's just a bad kid that don't know how to play ball. But that young dude had 35 points.
Yep.
And it was...
Wasn't he off the bench too? Was that off the bench?
35.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much you can do about it other than try to get a hand up, and he went off. But I was talking to a buddy of mine that texted me and said, which which Vols team is going to show up. I said it all that matters on when Josiah is going to start picking up, and he did. Of course, Dalton Connect with a light 15 or 16 from this past weekend, and you needed guys like Josiah and Santi and Josiah to pick up. Zakai to pick up this weekend, and I was glad to see this too. Toby Awaka with a little bit of bulliness in him.
I liked it.
I love the
They
bully.
were physical, Ramon. They were more physical than Kentucky was.
Yes, they were. They were, Kayla, and they had to be in that place right there. And they were so physical. And I heard Ron say this too, time and time again. When you play a style of ball, whether you're running people or you're hacking and fouling and trying to get away with it, it's only so many times that the referees can call fouls. So I was actually glad that they let them play on both sides.
I was too.
They let both sides play, and I thought at Menderson, the quadruple technical foul was fair. I thought when they fouled, It was good. They called it was questionable on both sides, but it was a good game. And again, Kentucky didn't die out. They did not. The Vols just smothered them. They hit the open three. They played defense a whole lot better. And, of course, you got to give credit where credit is due. Jonas Adu doing his thing around the rim and everything, too, with 3 blocks on the night. And not just him. Zakai with 3 steals.
It was huge.
They had a day in Rupp Arena, okay, against the Kitty Cats, man. I heard Savage in their show the other day with, we need more dogs, okay?
Well,
and that dog is smoky. Do you understand
That dog
me?
came out.
I was beyond ecstatic to see them cook the way they did in Rupp Arena this weekend.
And look, they needed that bounce back, right? They needed that bounce back win to give them a little confidence. We said it could go one way or another sometimes in basketball because momentum shifts that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way they wanted it to go. LSU up next on Wednesday, so that will be a good one. And then you're right, Ramon, they will see Alabama again. They will see Auburn again.
Yeah,
So
the Auburn game.
This is a tough SEC schedule still ahead, but if they can find the consistency with not every night maybe Dalton Connect having to hold the team together, but you're having performances like this, I think that's the way you do it here moving forward.
It is.
You're not going to play perfect every night, but if you can get a Josiah Jordan-James, you can get that performance by Zakai once in a while. Like, Dalton Connect is always going to be Dalton Connect for the most part, but when he is held down a little, you got to have other guys step up.
And other guys stood up.
And they
I'll tell
did.
you this before we go to break. Vols fans, embrace this era.
Yeah.
You're going to Lexington and beating Kentucky, okay? You're that close to beating embrace this era, y'all. Stop complaining. And I know
Absolutely.
you're not, but you just got to, when it's good, man.
Yep.
Go Vols!
Soak it in, baby. We'll soak in some good stuff. Coming up next, Kay Cabot. She broke the news about Bill Callahan coming to Tennessee to join his son. We'll talk to her coming up next on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, what's up? It's Will Bowling. Is your heating system keeping up with the cold weather of winter? Let's face it, we've already gone through negative temperatures, 0-degree temperatures. Odds are, if it isn't, you have already learned by now. And look, Mother Nature, they can always throw a freeze wave at us at any moment in Middle Tennessee. Well, good thing Lee Company is here to help. Available 24/7, 365. The professional Lee Company team, they got you covered. Their technicians will perform a 22-point inspection as well as seasonal cleaning and maintenance to keep your home running efficiently this winter. And even better, save $20 on your next heating tune-up visit today. That's $20 off on your home's next heating service. Again, this is the phone number you got to remember anytime we're talking about Lee Company, things that you got to fix around your home. 615-567-1000. Or their website, it's great as well. You can schedule an appointment there to keep your home heating in check at leecompany.com. 615-567-1000. That's Lee Company, all you need.
Welcome back into a Monday edition of Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Kayla Anderson, Ramon Foster, and now joined by somebody who I respect very much. She doesn't know who the heck I am, but covered some sports up in Columbus, Ohio before I came down here to Nashville. And Browns beat writer Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com does it all. We appreciate you, Mary Kay, for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So, big news this past week, and you broke it when it came to the Tennessee Titans. Bill Callahan, longtime offensive line coach, obviously spent a lot of time there in Cleveland, is going to be joining his son, Brian, right here in Tennessee. Did you guys kind of see that happening, Mary Kay? And were you surprised at all that the Browns allowed it to happen?
Well, the minute that Brian got the job, I thought to myself that Bill would be going with him because such a unique opportunity. I've heard Brian over the years talk about wanting to work with his dad and how he's emulated his dad. And so immediately I thought that this was going to happen, and I figured that the Browns would be bracing themselves for it. But then as the next, couple of days went by, people started to say, no, Bill's going to stay, he makes so much money, the Browns, really want to keep him. And so I really wasn't sure that this was going to happen. But, in the back of my mind, I still thought that Brian would try to bring his dad there. And lo and behold, I did find out that it was going to happen the other day. And it was a story that, that I knew was going to rock the Browns world here because no one in this town wanted to lose Bill Callahan with everything that he has done for this offensive line and for this football team. But it's certainly a wonderful, wonderful gain for the Titans.
Yeah, and all that he's done, let's just get into a little bit of that. It's just some of the development that's happened, especially this year with a really successful year, having some injuries on that line. What did you see just out of the development that he was able to get from some of these guys with so many going down at some point?
Well, let me first start with rookie right tackle DeJuan Jones. I will tell you what, I watched DeJuan Jones actually throw up on his first day of rookie minicamp. It was an overwhelming day for him. He wasn't pacing himself well, and he really struggled to get through that practice. And, Bill Callahan, he got him through that as best he could, but he kept being hard on him. I mean, he was really, he didn't let up. And, then we got to the Greenbrier for, the first 10 days of training camp. And the same thing with DeJuan. Bill Callahan was, riding him hard. He's demanding on these guys. And DeJuan at one point threw his helmet down and in frustration. Well, by the time he had to start, which was the third week of the season, because Jack Conklin went down, who you guys know well as well, went down with a knee injury. DeJuan had to be pressed into service. Now, this is a large human being, DeJuan Jones, fourth-round pick out of Ohio State, but he was a raw rookie. He played so well that it was unbelievable. And these guys got so much out of DeJuan. Bill did, and Scott Peters, the assistant offensive line coach, did. It was really something to watch until DeJuan went down with his own knee injury later in the season. He did a phenomenal job to the point where people were talking about him in Pro Bowl terms. He gave up only 3 sacks and 419 pass block snaps and I think 21 pressures. He just did a tremendous job to the point where I think he will either be the starting right tackle next season he's going to start for them next season on one of the sides, probably at right tackle. And so that was one thing. But Bill Callahan, he took a no-name center in Ethan Posick, who came in 22, and turned him almost into a Pro Bowl center. I think Ethan may have finished top 5 amongst centers this year. It was just that sort of development all across the line that he did. He really helped left tackle Jed Wills develop into a good bona fide starting left tackle. The guards are both Pro Bowlers. It's just, and it's so much of it is because of Bill, and the Browns know this.
That's fascinating. That's where I was going to go next. You guys and Cleveland not only had good quality play, but you had names that people recognize. And you just bring up the two interior guys so far. Of course, Wyatt Teller and Joel Bentonio, of course, with Poach too. Like, it's not just development of tackle. Some coaches have a specialty in that. His development has gone from the right tackle all the way to the left tackle. What, if you've talked to him, has been his approach to the way he treats those guys? Is it technique, or is it the mental part of their game that he's emphasizing the most?
It's all of it. It's all of it. So heavy on teaching and technique. That's a big, big part of it. I mean, I watch him coach a lot, and it really is. It's the fundamentals and it's the technique, that you see him out there, repping over and over and over with these guys. But that it's more than that. I mean, he sort of builds a toughness into his guys. And the Browns offensive linemen, they have a thing where, they play so hurt too, so often. And I'm sure that a lot of that is instilled by Bill Callahan. I mean, if you want to play for Bill Callahan, you got to put your big boy pants on. That's for sure. Yeah. I mean, these guys are tough. They play hurt. They don't want to come out of the game. They pull hard for each other. They play well together. They do everything really well, including, pulling, blocking, you name it. These guys are very technically sound, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL here, and you can credit most of that to Bill Callahan.
We're joined this morning by Kay Cabot, who broke the story about Bill Callahan coming to the Tennessee Titans here in Nashville. And Mary, I have to ask you this also. When you look at the amount of depth, though, too, that's I mentioned some names, and you brought them up too. Jack Conklin was a starter. DeJuan Jones, Jedrick Wills, James Hudson, I think a fourth-round draft pick from last year, Wyatt Teller, and Joel Bitonio. That's a lot of depth, too. How much influence does a guy like Bill Callahan have on retaining guys and also bringing guys to the city that he's coaching in?
Well, that is an important part of it, too. He had worked with Jerron Christian at one point, and Jerron came back as the starting left tackle. The Browns were down to their fourth and fifth tackles by the end of the season, down to their fourth and fifth tackles, and Bill got those guys ready to play. Jerron Christian, a veteran, and then James Hudson, a younger guy, a former fourth-round draft pick here. Mm-hmm. And they held it down. They held it down in the last, 4 or 5 games of the season. They were the ones blocking for Joe Flacco, who threw for 4 straight 300-yard games and went 4-1. You don't do that if you don't have Jerron Christian and James Hudson out there doing a really, really nice job for you, when most people thought that, that it was going to be good night Irene at that point when everybody was down to their fourth and fifth tackle. So, that's just a testament to Bill. That's what he can do. That's how he can get these guys ready to play. And, and that's why, it leaves such a gaping hole here, with Bill being gone. And, I've never seen anybody react to an offensive line coach leaving a football team the way that Cleveland Browns fans have reacted to losing Bill Callahan.
Fascinating.
Wow.
And on the other side of that, too, the Tennessee Titans are a no-run team, and so has Cleveland this year. Of course, Nick Chubb goes out early in the year, and the run game continues on. It steams forward. How much emphasis does he have and influence does he have on the running game and the type of backs that that Cleveland employed, and also the expectations of his guys up front to establish the run game?
Oh, he was huge. He was absolutely huge in the development of the run game, and a major reason why it flourished this season, even without Nick Chubb, even without all of those offensive linemen. Bill brings so much wisdom to that position, just in terms of blocking schemes and, just different ideas on, red zone and you name it. I mean, he had Kareem Hunt rushed for 9 touchdowns, basically came in after not having a team at all. He came in here when Nick Chubb went down, and he ended up rushing for 9 touchdowns and scoring both touchdowns in the wild card loss. And a lot of that, once again, is a testament to Bill Callahan helping to design the run game and the blocking and, and just being really creative in that way.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat writer for Cleveland.com, joining us this morning on RKW. Mary Kay, when it comes to Bill and just the presence, with Brian Callahan being a first-time head coach here in Tennessee, how big will Bill, obviously it's his dad, right? He knows his dad very well. He trusts his dad, but Bill has been in the league for so long, just not only as an offensive line coach, but he's had experience as a head coach before. How big do you think this is for Brian to have that experience?
I think it's absolutely invaluable. And that's why the minute he took the job, I really, really believed that he would be trying to bring his dad along with him. Because when you have this job for the first time, you really need some trusted advisors around you. You need some people that will tell you the truth, not tell you what you want to hear, and also be tough enough to get you through those times that are inevitably going to come. It's a roller coaster ride. You're going to have, 10 things that happen during the course of the season that you're going to have to deal with that pop up unexpectedly. Bill's seen it all. He's been through it all. As you mentioned, he's been a head coach. He sat in that chair. He knows what that's like. He knows that he's responsible for the whole entire operation of everything and that the buck stops there. And I think he's just going to be tremendous for Brian in that regard. And he can probably take some things off of his plate too. I thought that maybe he would make him the assistant head coach or senior advisor or something like that. But even if he doesn't have that in name, he will be that for Brian.
I think there's a lot of questions here, and I don't know how familiar you are with this offensive line here, but it's been a mess for the past 2 years, just to put it quite bluntly. And this is a situation where they're having to draft to really kind of be homegrown here. And I'm just interested with the last year's draft pick in Peter Skoronski. There was questions with him being a tackle in college. He came here and played guard on the left side. Now there's the question, could he be moved possibly back to tackle with a different staff? How familiar are you with kind of Bill Callahan's ability to maybe look at the overall picture and say, that might be better this way? Like, do you feel like he will have a lot of say in maybe where these guys can be?
Well, they should give him the say in where those guys play. They should do that because he is the expert. And if he sees that you have a natural-born guard playing tackle, he'll know that guy needs to move. That's just, Bill is absolutely brilliant when it comes to that sort of thing. And if they give him the jurisdiction to line it up the way that it should go, then they'll get it right because that's one of Bill's it's one of his areas of strength.
What was Cleveland's reaction? I'm sure it's probably about the same as Nashville's as far as Bill Callahan coming there because, again, you guys ended up getting Deshaun Watson and having to protect him. And, of course, you mentioned the run that Flacco went on this year, and that wasn't luck. That was protection. That was watching an older quarterback sit in the pocket and be comfortable. What was the initial reaction to all of that whenever Bill Callahan came to Cleveland?
Well, when he first came here, everybody knew what they were getting because his reputation precedes him. There's no question about that. And as I mentioned, people started to get rattled the minute Brian took the job that, no, what's going to happen with Bill? It was, 4 or 5 days of that. I wrote a couple of stories, just kind of questioning whether or not it could happen. And, even that sort of rocked the world and dominated the airwaves in terms of sports talk radio. And, it was almost like the sky was going to be falling if Bill Callahan was going to leave the Cleveland Browns. It was like nothing that I've seen before for an assistant coach, really, especially not a coordinator. We're talking about a position coach. So, that's just the impact that he made here. And he's probably even a little bit surprised by it, right? Who really, just gets so upset about a position coach leaving a team. But that's exactly what happened here. And it's because that's how good he is. And he's just going to be a tremendous, tremendous help to Brian. I think it's so cool that those two guys get to work together. That's a unique opportunity. And you could see in Brian's introductory press conference how much this means to him. This means so much. He reveres his dad. And he's going to want to make his dad proud, too. And with him right there in the building, he's going to have no choice but, to burn the midnight oil, to get this right, and, and to pour his heart and soul into this job.
What's super unique about that also, of course, is father-son, right? And the son, the one that employed dad. But hearing Brian talk about his pathway to becoming a coach, he said his dad always told him, I'm not giving you a job. You know, and I think that's super unique. Of course, when you have somebody in that position that can probably pull those cards to get you higher, he chose not to. So that speaks a lot about what their relationship will be working together, don't you think, Mary?
Yes, I think so. And in the same way that, that I've watched him toughen up his offensive linemen, I'm sure that's, the approach he used with Brian forging his way in this profession and making his own way and doing it so that it wasn't, that he wasn't getting handed anything and it wasn't just nepotism. He had to fight for this. And, that will serve him well as he steps out there as a first-time head coach, because it's hard. Everybody knows how hard it is. And Bill's going to be a tremendous help to him, but, he wouldn't be here right now if Bill didn't make him earn it.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat writer for Cleveland.com, joining us this morning. We appreciate you. Please go follow her at Mary Kay Cabot on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
You're incredible at what you do, and we really appreciate your time, Mary Kay.
Definitely.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Have a great week.
You too.
You too.
Yeah. When we talk about her being like one of the best that does it, she's been doing it for a long time. She's a Hall of Fame selector when it comes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And man, she had some good stuff, Ramon. And let's talk about some of that stuff. I want to see what you picked from that, because there's a couple things specifically that she said about Bill Callahan that stood out to me that really is going to help this Titans offensive line. That's coming up next on RKW here on 104.5 The Zone. Hey, it's Kayla Anderson for the Ingram Agency, where protection is our promise. Chris Ingram and his great group of agents really built this from the ground up back in 2010, now serving the entire state of Tennessee. So maybe it's that time of year now that you have entered the new year. You're looking for new insurance, or you're looking for insurance for the first time. The Ingram Agency offers it all. They have life insurance, home insurance, business insurance, and this is the time to get in on it. Speaking to some of those business owners in particular here in Middle Tennessee or around the state, now is the time to make sure you're covered and cost effective for 2024. And rest assured, the Ingram Agency has solutions for you. Every business, this, is unique. So they offer tailored to your industry, ensuring your enterprise remains secure. And why pay more if you don't have to? The Ingram Agency will review your coverage. They'll make sure you're not paying for what you don't need, and you have a policy that provides coverage where it is needed. So go ahead and check out our friends from the Ingram Agency, building this from the ground up back in 2010. You can check them out online at www.ingramagency.com. Welcome back into RKW on this Monday morning. And yes, the sun is out.
There it is.
It's a good thing. It's supposed to be pretty nice here this week. Maybe some rain coming in, but 60s. We'll take it, right?
I'll take that all day, as long as it's just rain.
Exactly. Well, that was a great visit from Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com, really bringing us inside the mind of Bill Callahan as much as she can, because she's covered him up there for a minute. And I think, Ramon, the biggest takeaway that I got from that is the way that he goes about developing his players. She said specifically with DeJuan Jones, who we saw firsthand last year at the Senior Bowl, pretty raw, right? Big guy. And he was really able to coach him to be a starter, obviously before he went down with the injury. But it was tough love. Like, it was not just sitting back and kind of being easy on these guys. Like, he's tough in how he develops his players, but it really seems like that's how he gets the most out of him.
It will be, but I think there's going to be fairness that come into it too, because if you look at him, he's got some very veteran guys on his squad too. So there's a level of being hard on DeJuan Jones, but understanding what the group needs, like a Joel Bitonio or, you know, a Jedrick Wills or somebody like that, like guys that's been around somewhat. And that's what you get for a guy that's been in the league as long as he has. One of the bigger takeaways is two that I absolutely love. I remember last year, the James Hudson prospect came out, and it was very high on him, said he was going to have to be a developmental guy. He showed up for them this year. So it's that side of it. But one of the points is the talent that they have. They have a long list of talent inside of that room, and those are guys that are either there with him and got there after him also to where he helped develop. Like she said, DeJuan Jones is going to be a guy that competes for probably starting right tackle because, of course, Jack Conklin's hurt again. So it's probably going to be his spot, especially if Jedrick Wills is on the if he's on the left side, which they expect him to be. But not just that. You understood you got core guys up the middle. You got your center guard triangle, and you got two tackles. He knows how to build a line, whether that be the Cleveland scouting department or whether that be, hey, Coach Callahan saying, I like this guy to fit for me. And then, of course, she mentioned the one other thing, too, as far as interior guys and also the tackles was technique. At the end of the day, no matter what sport you're playing, like all the cute stuff that people do, you know, they want to shake you in basketball or, heck, they want to do something crazy when they're rushing against you. At the end of the day, technique is what matters. And you heard it said numerous times from her, from Kay Cabot, by saying technique is what he drills to his guys. And that's where you build a foundation where everybody understands what they're doing, how they're going to do it. That way, when you get to the game and somebody presents something to you that you've never seen before, that's where technique comes to play. And I think that's one of the biggest things that you can always give to any athlete is great technique and of course, understanding the why and the hows. Like, the development of these guys that he's coached over the years, he has a template probably for every type of body type because DeJuan Jones is a bigger body dude. But on the left side, Jedrick Wills is a smaller guy. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you look at a guy like Joel Bitonio, been around the league in different systems on numerous teams, and he's able to coach him up to continue his Pro Bowl legacy there. So I'm talking about a home run hire. It is.
Yeah. I mean, she said she has never seen an offensive line coach or position coach get that much, you know, I guess love, but they're sad that he's leaving than she has response-wise from Cleveland fans up there. Like, they are devastated that Bill Callahan is leaving because that's just how much value he brings to a squad. I also thought it was interesting, Ramon, that she said in terms of his intellect and what they're able to bring in or what they're able to work with what's already there, because there's a lot of versatility with the guys that are there right now. We've seen them all over the place, right? And even with Peter Skoronski, possibly if you have a reason to put him at tackle or you want to try him out there, Bill will be the first one to say, hey, maybe we'll try it, but he'll be the first one to say it'll work or it won't work. And I think that's
Absolutely.
huge too, Ramon,
It
with
is.
just the versatility you still see with the guys that are on this line.
It is. And again, this is where I stand with it. As bad of a problem as this group has had here with the Titans as far as protecting. And the run game has somewhat been good because you had a really good running back to help out with that. But I'll say this, you'll never have to question whether they're being taught or developed. If a guy is bad or a guy's not holding up his end of the tape, well, guess what? End of the rope, well, guess what? He's probably going to be out or you're going to be looking for his replacement. If we believe that offensive line coach Bill Callahan is that good, well, guess what? Either you get good under him or you get gone because
Yes.
he has a huge track record on making people be all pros and Pro Bowlers.
I love what you just said there, and that is exactly true. There is no gray now with him coming in.
No gray with the
There's
teaching.
no gray.
No gray with the teaching and technique.
Well, 2 hours down, 2 more to go here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Coming up at 8:20, our good friend Joshua Perry will join us from NBC Sports. But coming up next, there are some new addition to Brian Callahan's staff over the weekend. We'll go over kind of what the staff looks like so far and what moves could still be made. That's coming up next on RKW here on 104.5 The Zone.
What's going on? 7:58. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Super Bowl week and the sporting world is flocking to Las Vegas, but we are going to start on the other side of the country with Washington putting its finishing touches on its staff. Dan Quinn, who got the job last week, found his OC and DC, his offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, whose deal fell through in Vegas. He ends up in our nation's capital, followed by Joe Witt Jr., who follows him from Dallas. The Pro Bowl was this weekend, seeing Eli Manning in the NFC take down Tom Brady in the AFC 64-59. More importantly, Peyton Manning gave his thoughts on Brian Callahan and Derrick Henry potentially working together in Tennessee.
Brian Callahan would love Derrick Henry and vice versa. I know there's obviously the business side of it that comes into play, and that's for Rand Carthon and staff to decide. But Brian Callahan appreciates a good running game. His dad's coming over. His dad's the best line coach in the NFL. I know he appreciates a good back. So it'd be a great place for Derrick to continue to play, in my opinion.
And in college coaching news, a New England legend headed to the college ranks. That's right, Bill Belichick. His son, Steve Belichick, is set to become the Huskies' DC over in Washington. Steve has been in New England since 2012. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The sun is shining here in Middle Tennessee, and that makes it just a little easier to get up and going on this Monday morning. And hopefully we make it a little easier to do what you're doing on this Monday. Ramon, Kayla, and Will, alongside our 11-year NFL veteran involved for life. It is Ramon Foster.
Yay.
We've got Robert Walsh behind the glass. It is 8 o'clock. That means he's officially up and at 'em. Although I believe he was up and at 'em at 7 a.m. this morning, guys. I'm Kayla Anderson. Will Bowling flying back from London today. And, of course, we're always brewed up by our good friends at 8th and Roast, locally owned and operated by lifetime friends turned business partners who have actually designed shops all over Middle Tennessee for a way to feel welcome, connected, and a part of a community. Great coffee, great pastries, great breakfast sandwiches, you name it, they've got it for you. So make sure you go by and check one of those out. How are we all doing this morning?
We're good to go. I'm
We're
caffeinated,
good?
ready
All right.
to roll. Yeah, the coffee's officially kicked in. Shout out to 8th and Roast, by
Let's
the
go.
way, too, man. Having
Which
a
one did
good
you
cup.
put in there?
I ain't even see Kayla. I'm going to be real. It might
You
have been a
just like
French
it's
connection.
one of the bags, right?
Yeah, it's one of the bags I trust, and I'm always trust 8th and Roast
Yes.
every single time. I actually turned on, too, the old Cleveland Browns Titans game from week 3 early in the season, just to see some stuff. What I will say is this group played physical as heck. There's so many cleanup blocks on that offensive line as far
You're
as
talking about the Browns, right?
the Browns offensive line as far as Bill Callahan goes. Also, remember, too, that Myles Garrett had 3.5 sacks. Also on
We
that
do.
day.
I think Titans fans don't want to remember that, but man, that was painful.
Best way to get better is remember the past,
Exactly.
okay? Kayla?
And then he sunned Andre Dillard after the game, telling him,
Yes,
man,
that's
you'll,
right.
you'll get him next time, man. You had a good game, man. You had a good game. If somebody's trying to good game you after they whoop your ass, man, you're going to have to whoop it again. I can't do this, man.
Hey, you know what I'm doing to me? Hey, shut up, man. Why you don't do this? He did sun him,
Forgot
Bird.
about that.
Golly, as I'm looking right now, there's a strip fumble. No lie, Bert. Why did you have to bring that up?
I'm
man?
sorry, as Cheyenne says, why you always got to bring up old stuff?
Oh,
Why you always got to bring up old stuff for?
dog.
Like that wound was healed, now it's infected again.
Yeah,
Dang.
Bert. Yeah, we got staff. Like, what are we talking about
We
here?
do have staff. They've got a great staff. Bill Callahan. We just
There
talked
you
to
go.
Mary Kay Cabot. If you missed it, you can check it out on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts at, or check it out on YouTube. The video will be
Yes.
up momentarily.
Twitch,
Yeah.
please.
Twitch. I missed that one. Dog it. I gotta step my game up. I gotta.
You getting
step my game
sun just like Andre Dillard did,
I know,
man.
right?
That's crazy. We can actually talk about that now.
I know. And by the way, we've had some people ask about Andre Dillard. Remember, he technically, I think, on a 3-year deal. Now, there might be
3-year
some
deal.
outs after the 2 years, but there's a good chance he possibly could be back next year.
Yeah.
There's a chance.
There's always a
And
chance.
I know it's not going to be something that's gonna go over well with fans. I'm really actually interested to see what they do with that.
Yeah, me too.
Because what do you bring to the table? I mean, nothing.
No, he doesn't. So it's fascinating. His deal breaks out like this according to Spot Track, since we're talking to Tennessee offensive line and Andre Dillard and Bill Callahan. So he signed a 3-year, $29 million deal, which included a $5.9 million signing bonus and $13 million guaranteed. So his average is about 9.6 a year. In 2024, he will earn a base of $9 million. His cap hit will be about 10.6 and a dead cap of 7.7. So if you cut him, you have to carry that 7.7 when it all boils down. But the way I look at 3-year deals is it's a 1 or 2, depending on the performance. And his performance wasn't that great. So I can almost see the Titans getting out of this one.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing about Dillard. He's only 29, but he did not get better throughout the course of this season. And it just looked low as far as what he was capable of doing for the squad. Again, on this show, we got to call it what it is. If it's good, we going to say it's good.
Yeah.
And if it's bad, Kayla, we going to
Gotta say
call
it's
it
bad.
bad. And this was a bad showing from him.
Yep.
For a guy that was a former first-rounder, a lot of the attributes that you love, like he has the speed, he has the size, he has the athletic ability, but getting somebody to play at the level that you need them to is a different conversation. Now, again, to your point, he's under contract. You do not have to cut him. I know Chris Hubbard's not under contract. Aaron Brewer's not under contract this year. I think Bronsko still is.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you got some young guys in the fold, too.
Right.
There's one thing you can never have enough of is bodies as far as the offensive line goes. Do I think they're out of this contract this year? Yes. Is there a 5% chance he could stay here? Probably so, depending upon if Coach Callahan thinks he can work with him.
Oof. And he's already had a chance in Philadelphia under a great line coach there too.
He
So
did.
I'm sorry, but it's like you didn't develop there under one of the best. I mean, maybe Callahan's approach is different, but I just don't see the dog that I needed to see at any point of the season, even when he was benched. Yeah. To me, like the dog comes out if you are doubting me. Yeah. And I never saw that come out. So
and to be clear, if this was a Vol, I'd have to talk about him the same way too. If it's good, it's good, and if it's bad, it's bad. And his play this year wasn't good. And of course, a 1-year deal a 3-year deal can equal a 1. So we're going to see.
Yeah, we are going to see, but good thing to clear that up because I know there were some questions about that. When it comes to this staff, though, and we just talked about Bill Callahan, talked to Kay Cabot. You can always go check that conversation out on Apple Podcasts when this show ends. Great conversation with her. But they've also added to the defensive side of the ball in terms of this coaching staff, Ramon. Frank Bush, Teron Davenport from ESPN reported this first on Friday. Frank Bush has been hired as the linebackers coach, and Steven Jackson as the defensive back coach for the Tennessee Titans. Both of them longtime assistants. Bush was with the Atlanta Falcons last year, and this will actually be his second stint with the Titans. He was a linebackers coach here in 2011 and 2012 under Mike Munchak. Yeah. And then Jackson was also with the Falcons last year. This is his second stint, I should say, with the Titans. So he was here in 2016 and 2017 under Mike Mularkey. So really worlds colliding here. It is such a small world, whether you're a player or coach, Ramon, and these guys are familiar with this organization.
Even more familiar because if this is the same Steve Jackson that I'm thinking of, he also played for the Houston Oilers, Houston/Tennessee Oilers and Titans from 91 to 99. Yes. So I'll be interested to hear Blaine speak about him later in the day. Yes, he was a defensive back for the Houston Oilers and Titans, and now as a secondary coach. So there's a bunch of just familiar faces coming around here. And here's the thing about it. Hearing about Frank Bush, the inside linebackers coach, the off-ball linebacker coach himself, apparently is a stud of a coach too. I know this is all new, and everybody's going to praise everybody when it comes down to these new hires, right? And I don't want to make it seem that way, okay? But everything that I've heard, Kayla, about these coaches that you've brought, that Coach Callahan and Rand have brought in, is that they're good. Starting with Denard Wilson. Ask about Denard Wilson. People are going to tell you he's a head coach in waiting with a little bit more experience. Nick Holst is the same thing as far as his mindset and how he's approaching the game. And, of course, with Bill Callahan to pick him to be his offensive coordinator. Brian Callahan. You look at Bill Callahan. We've already talked about that. Tyke Tober has been said to be a very good developmental coach when you look at him. Frank Bush, from my understanding, will have guys out there like they're eating gunpowder to go play.
I love that.
Like to sick them.
And
I'll say this too. When you mention the middle linebacker position, I feel like that's been one of those positions as of late for this Titan, from Rashawn, you know what I'm saying? From David Long Jr., who I think is a stud. But you think about the guys that have come through this building that have gone to other places and not even just flourishing at other places. Where's Rashawn at? You know what I'm saying?
You're right. He was last with the Cowboys, I think?
You see what I'm saying? Like, the development of that group is crucial, too, because that group right there, look what Roquan Smith's done for Baltimore's defense, right? And as much as they've minimized the inside linebacker position, as much as they've minimized, it's just as important for teams to have that guy up the middle that is a cleanup man. If you believe in that D-line and if the secondary is holding up their end of it, that middle linebacking group, that core has to be good. And to all understanding, the people that I've talked to about Frank Bush, this is the guy to help with that type of development. He's very highly respected. And here's another thing, too. He's a position-specific coach also. The same way has been said about Tyke Tober. Coach wide receivers all his life.
Yep.
Bill Callahan has coached offensive line all his life. You look at the guys that are around this organization right now that's been deemed as coaches. Steven Jackson, another secondary.
And it's actually Steve. So Teron, he said, my apologies, Steve Jackson, just to let y'all know, it is Steve Jackson.
Yes.
Yeah, Steve East.
But Steve Jackson's been a secondary coach all his life.
Yeah.
Even here with the Titans in 16 and 17, assistant defensive backs coach, and go to the Jets. And he's done all of these things where he's been in a new age defense as far as coaching up slot corners. That's huge now. He did that in Cincinnati. And, of course, with what they've had in Atlanta over the last couple of years, and you look at the development of guys like Roger McCreary and others, and you say to yourself, if these coaches are here who are veteran guys that have a lot of respect around the league, then, yes, there should be growth. You shouldn't question the coaching as much as you used to. These aren't guys that were elevated in-house that you just say, oh, they just know the system.
Exactly.
And there's no knock on that. I believe in absolutely elevating guys that have earned it, know your system, know what your expectations are. But here's a group of people who will now be under Denard Wilson that will play his style of defense that have been in other places, probably interconnected with him in other places also, to where now you know, at least in the building, they will be taught. They will know good technique. They will have real expectations. And now it falls on the front office and scouting as far as the type of players that they want to bring in.
Exactly. They are so specialized in what they do in those certain positions because they've been doing it their whole lives.
Yeah.
That you're right. The development, it's going to be there with these types of coaches in really crucial positions. And we'll get to that coming up at 9:20. Like, who's the most crucial hire for this Brian Callahan staff, right? Because you could go a couple different ways with this. We'll get into that, but we're going to actually get to some college football and some questions about Mike Vrabel. Will he get back into coaching? If so, where? Joshua Perry played for him at Ohio State. Joshua Perry does so much stuff well. NBC analyst, he's coming up after the break here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, 104.5 The Zone. Hey, it's Dean Glasscock for our friends at Save a Tree, and it is that time of the year. We've seen the winter storms come through and you're maybe worrying about your trees and shrubs. Dean, what can you tell us about your full service tree and shrub care there?
Hey there. Happy Monday, everybody. Good morning, Kayla. 615-299-9999. That's the number to remember when you think about your trees and shrubs around your home. Certified arborist, Save a Tree. It's SAVATREE.com. We'll come out, we'll look around, we will give you an honest, transparent assessment of your mature trees around your home. And we can also talk to you about protecting your landscaping around your home, your turf, your shrubs, your ornamental trees as well. So again, 615-299-9999. The winter's been kind of rough, but yet it really has been pretty mild as well. So we're expecting some pretty heavy pressure. So give us a call. We want to come out and just kind of educate you and tell you what we can do to benefit around your home. So again, 615-299-9999. I hope you all have a great week. It's a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Almost 30 years of experience. They are the ones to trust. Check them out at Save a Tree, SAVATREE.com, or just simply call them at 699-9999. Welcome back into RKW on this beautiful Monday morning here in Middle Tennessee. Always excited to be joined by our good friend Joshua Perry, analyst at NBC Sports and co-host of The Rally on Bally Sports. What's up, my friend?
All is well. Really appreciate you having me back on the program. Excited to talk with you today.
Woo, we got so much stuff to get to, and I want to start with the latest that happened just this last week. Obviously, it started with Tennessee and NCAA and them nitpicking again at something in terms of this time NIL. And then later in the week, Joshua, it came to be that the SEC and Big Ten came out and said, hey, we're forming an advisory group. And they look to be coming full force at the NCAA. What are you taking from this? And what do you think the future is of the NCAA?
Yeah, I mean, it's about time for something like this. And I think the biggest revelation from the NCAA and Tennessee going back and forth is one of the lines that came from the Tennessee Athletic Department, which I think was something that a lot of people who cover the sport and are a part of the sport feel, but haven't really said out loud, is that the NCAA guides the sport without having a realistic perspective of what it takes to really manage a sport on campus. Like the way that the NCAA has envisioned the sport to run and to the rules to be enforced is not a realistic path. And what Tennessee did is something that just about everybody's doing right now. People that are recruiting and aggregating talent at a high level, like they are pushing forward as hard as possible. And they're playing in every gray area. A lot of people have used the analogy of being on the interstate and, speed limit might say 55, but if folks around you are going to 80, it's dangerous to not go 80 as well. And the fact that they tried it with Florida State, now they're doing it with Tennessee, it seems ridiculous because people who watch the sport are like, everybody's doing this. So glad to see that they're fighting back against the NCAA on this one. You mentioned the partnership between Big Ten and SEC. I think this was something that was going to happen from the standpoint of you have the two richest conferences in collegiate athletics. They want to make sure that they can be advocates as we enter this new era in sports and kind of this frontier that's been a little bit uncharted. Now, I think that we're going to see maybe some of the other power conferences or either group of five conferences that are going to push back on what Big Ten and SEC are doing from a power standpoint. And maybe we see this evolve into a scenario where football is governed differently than the rest of the sports, which I would be a fan of because especially with conference realignment and expansion, you got West Coast teams in the ACC and Big Ten now. I think it's a lot to ask of other athletes that don't play football for travel and things of that nature. But break off football, then you put in a commissioner so you can say, okay, we're going to govern the sport ourselves and we're going to do it in a way that everybody feels like they have a seat at the table. But ultimately, the current setup, the current framework we have for collegiate athletics is broken. It worked in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. 2000s comes around, we start to see more money pumping into this thing. You started to see it fracture a little bit. 2010 and beyond became different. Now we're in the 2020s, and it's like, we can't do this anymore, so I'm glad to see some changes.
When it comes to keeping head coaches in college football, we just saw it with Jeff Hafley leaving to be the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. This is something I would guess college football does not want to start bleeding coaches because a lot of them don't want to deal with NIL and the transfer portal. What can happen in the next few years, maybe with the organization of these things, to be able to keep coaches happy in college football and not feeling like it's a burden?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Jeff Hafley. We see what Chip Kelly's doing out there on the West Coast. Like, he is begging for an NFL coordinator job. A guy who's going to make $6 million this year is begging to be a coordinator in the NFL. And I think it's a bad look for the sport. We saw Nick Saban retire, and certainly the changes, and the fact that he's 72 years old, but the changes certainly didn't help in trying to keep him around. And I could see a scenario where, a guy like Ryan Day, who came from the NFL, says, you know what, I win 11 games ain't good enough here, and I got to bust my behind to get all these guys in here. I'm just going to go back. You could see a situation with Kirby or Dabo where these guys just flat out retire and say, I'm going to do TV, or I'm just going to go to a beach somewhere and sip Mai Tai. So one of the things that I think needs to happen is, number one, I do think that the power conferences and some of the smaller schools should play on a different landscape. I think there should be two different championships. I think it's wild to ask a group of 5 schools to try to compete for the same thing that the Power 5 schools are at the beginning of the year. It's just not true. And we're also seeing where, the group of 5 schools are really losing great coaches to be coordinators or position coaches at Power 5 schools because they feel like they're at a dead end right now, which I don't think is good for the sport either. Then I look at collegiate football, and especially at the highest level, and one of the things that would help in terms of NIL and in terms of the transfer portal is, and I've been a guy who's against this, but now I'm starting to look at it and say it makes a little bit more sense. Make these kids employees. And so they get to be paid a salary, and they can capture NIL funds on top of that through legitimate marketing and endorsements, get rid of the collectives and say, you go hire a real agent, you go contract with a real company that pays you to do real work. And when you have a contract, you can't just job hop the way that these kids are doing right now. It's like you got to be on campus for X amount of years, and then after that, it might be a little bit of a free agency window for the remainder of your eligibility. I think that simplifies things so much because we're seeing right now where, 2 times a year, portal opens, guys are getting in, coaching change happens, portal opens, guys are getting in, and coaches are sitting there saying, okay, I got to make sure the dudes on my roster are happy right now, and I also got to go out there and try to get the best talent that's in the portal. And it's unsustainable because all you're doing is recruiting and fundraising, and you're not teaching guys about how to run cover 3 the way that you want to teach them to. And it's unfortunate when you got into coaching to actually coach people.
Joshua, man, thanks for joining us this morning. I have to ask you, as a former college athlete yourself, before we got to this point to where lawsuits are being had and people are getting paid, I know you probably at Ohio State had the conversation, man, I know we deserve something because even I did from 2004 to 2008. The idea that I see my coach pull up in a big body Lexus or all the coaches got dealer cars, right? And you just had to say to yourself, man, we deserve something. I have to ask you, before the hundreds of thousands and now millions are being paid out of NIL deals, like if they'd have came to the table, the NCAA, with something, what do you even think that number would have been as far as satisfying you, and what would it have looked like with you and your teammates to say, yeah, we're getting paid?
It's a funny thing because I think about it, and you're totally right. Like, it's right now it's ridiculous. Like, you got high school kids saying that their price to get in the door is $1 million, $1.2 million. I'm sitting here thinking, like, dog, that is crazy money for anybody. I think for the time that I was in college, if you were to propose that there was a base salary of, anywhere between, I'd say $25,000 to $60,000, for some of the bigger schools that could afford it. Like, I wouldn't have complained a bit. And I know it's like, in the day and age we're in right now, some of these kids feel like they can't come to school for less than $250,000. It was never about getting rich. It was just about feeling like I was getting a piece of the pie. Like, I think the thing where this all started was players wanted equity, right? Like, they wanted to feel like they were in an equitable situation. And I don't think when we set out to create this system that we were like, the players should get wealthy, right? If you're a kid who is 17, 18 years old and you have not done a thing, haven't made a single tackle, didn't block anybody, haven't completed a pass, no, you're not supposed to be rich. You haven't proven yourself. And so I think if you could have just come in and said, listen, we're going to give you a piece of the pie. We're going to make sure you feel like you're involved. For guys who had reasons to send money back home or whatever the case is, your family can feel good about this. For other kids, it's like, okay, well, now you can go get a new pair of Jordans, or if you want to go and get a car and do all that kind of stuff, you can do it. But we're in such a place right now where you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And I think that's what's a little bit unfortunate is, some people have seen what type of money folks are willing to throw. And you can't try to talk them into something that would have been reasonable in the beginning had they just done it like that. And that's going to be a challenge moving forward.
It really will. And heck, you mentioned about $60,000 a year. It breaks down to $5,000 a month. Of course, taxes have to also be paid on that too, right? At the end of the time. Heck, Josh, I was thinking, man, you could have gave me an extra $500 to $1,000, and I would have been cool, But with all that being said, what's next for the NCAA? And, of course, the big draw for them right now is March Madness. How can they attempt to get back at the table, considering lawsuits and, the other sanctions that they put on other teams and conferences, how do they get it back?
Well, I would ask the question, like, do we feel like the way that they have governed other sports and other postseasons is broken? Because I think a lot of this right now is being driven by football, which is the big cash cow for many people. You mentioned March Madness. Like, I think when people think about March Madness, they would think good things about it, right? It's like the one thing the NCAA has probably done right that people appreciate. And so from that standpoint, I'm not exactly sure that everything needs to be taken back by the conferences or whoever is going to be governing this thing moving forward. But I look at football specifically, and I think it is important to maintain interest in that sport because of what it does financially for athletic departments. And at Ohio State, I became really close friends with a lot of athletes from different sports. There's 36 varsity sports at Ohio State. It would be a shame if the changes in the landscape hurt football to a point where they had to start cutting some of those other sports. So I would address that first. Then I would start asking the question, okay, do we think that, the way that they promote the postseason for lacrosse is broken? No. Okay. So we can keep that there. Do we think March Madness is broken? No. Okay. We can keep that there. Do we think wrestling's broken? No. Okay. We can keep that there. And try to create a space where we govern things by how it makes sense to do it. And I think that's why football's kind of been the big question mark for a lot of people.
When you also look at how this has all been set up, right, as far as the lawsuits and players getting paid, and then, of course, the way the NCAA as of late has tried to, hold sanctions or allege stuff against teams, how much did the team up north, Michigan, Big Blue, right, how much did them, pretty much patting the NCAA on their back somewhat hurt the cause that they have and the power that the NCAA have? Because to get somewhat caught cheating and a 4-game suspension for the coach, how much did that hurt their case?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because Michigan kind of had a heel turn where at the beginning of the year, Jim Harbaugh, served a suspension for recruiting violations. And looking back on it, like, I don't know why anybody would negotiate a self-imposed suspension for recruiting violations at this point. I would have told them to kick rocks and, like, we're just going to go about our business the way that it is. And then you get to the cheating scandal, which is still open. Like, they're still investigating this thing. And Michigan was like, you know what, we're going to do our thing. The Big Ten steps in. They're like, kind of, we need you to sit this one out. And they're like, whatever. And they go on and win a championship. And I feel like winning the championship might have been the thing that really did the NCAA in, because it proved that there was an issue that was happening that coaches around the Big Ten were claiming had an impact on the way that some of these games played out. And the NCAA is built in a way that they cannot act swiftly enough. They were sending evidence to the Big Ten conference office here in Chicago so they could look at it and make a decision about what they thought needed to happen, because there needed to be something done in the immediacy. But the NCAA was literally like, well, we got to gather information, then we got to review it, and then we got to send you a notice of allegations. And once that's done, you'll have 90 days to respond to that. And then after we get the response, we can sit there and negotiate a resolution that we think is sufficient. And it's like, brother, that's a year and a half that it would take to do that. And we're talking about something that needs to be handled right now. I think it was a big eye opener. And like, even the way that Michigan kind of handled themselves from the beginning of the year to the end, a lot of people have this attitude right now where it's like, okay, we don't trust you. We don't believe in you. We don't think you know what you're doing. So we're either just not going to listen or we're going to sue you.
Woo, my goodness. Joshua Perry, good friend from NBC Sports, joining us now on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. I want to shift gears a little bit because I think it was 2 weeks ago, had Wesley Woodyard on, former Tennessee Titans player who played for Mike Vrabel. Obviously, in that first year, Mike Vrabel was here. You played for Mike Vrabel when you were at Ohio State. I believe he was your linebackers coach. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So were you surprised at all, first and foremost, let's start with that, with the departure of Mike Vrabel? And in any way, are you surprised that he does not have a head coaching job here in the 2024 cycle?
It's a yes to both of them. I was shocked when he was let go. And it was like, I knew it was a possibility, but it didn't necessarily feel like Mike Vrabel was the issue. I felt like, there was contention. And I don't want to speak out of turn because y'all know as well as anybody down there, but it felt like maybe things weren't working and there were some disagreements and everything else. But it's like, this is a high quality coach, and it feels like somebody you want to see if you can run it back and put more pieces together, and especially in the division that they're playing, and see if you don't have a chance. Like, certainly we feel like Jaguars and Texans and the Colts have things to like, but it's not like that division is running, through one city. Like, anybody could win it in a given year. And so it's like, okay, Mike Vrabel's out. Well, bunch of desirable openings, and Chargers felt like a spot. And we knew that Jim Harbaugh was the guy for them, but it was always a push and a pull, a little bit of a tug for him to come back. And if that didn't work out, it felt like Mike Vrabel would be a really good fit there. Seattle, I thought, was going to really be in on him. I look at some of the other openings, and it's like, would you take the Washington job? Probably not. And so, yes, it's shocking because I think he's a high-quality coach that he's not employed right now. I also think that a high-quality coach isn't taking any old opening. I think it's got to be the right opening to want to go. The interesting thing about this is for, folks, we were just talking about college football that are interested in this kind of stuff, is the one person that was hoping and wishing and praying that Mike Vrabel was going to get an NFL job was probably Ryan Day, from the standpoint of people are saying that he should be on the hot seat. I disagree to a big extent with that because it's hard to win 11 games a year, and that's all Ryan Day has done since he's taken over at Ohio State. But now it's like the first time, it's not even the first time Ohio State loses a game. It's the first time they don't look good winning a game. They're going to be like, hire Mike Vrabel, bring the guy back to Columbus. And so he's going to have his opportunities, I think, in the next cycle, whether it's NFL or college football. But, seeing a fall without Mike Vrabel on the sideline is definitely going to be interesting.
One more thing to add to that, too. I just wanted to pick your brain in terms of Mike Vrabel and how he is with players. Because, like I mentioned, Wesley Woodyard, he shared some stories. There was a lot of kind of interesting facts about some of the ways that he handled players, maybe didn't listen to them as much, maybe was in people's business in terms of coaches a little too much. What would you have described Mike Vrabel as a coach on and off the field?
He was a hard driver. Like he's a guy who is a super tough dude. He's got very high standards. He comes from kind of that Belichick framework of, there's a certain way that we expect business to be done. And there's a certain level of expectation for how players are going to conduct themselves and how they're going to behave and how they're going to hold accountability. And I think it's difficult because before you get to the part where you figure out that Mike Vrabel really loves you and wants you to be the best player that you can be, it feels like a guy who is like tough for no reason. And I felt that at Ohio State at times, but the reality of the situation, super sharp guy. He was a great player. And so I think he was a great player, but if you asked him, he would tell you that there's not a bunch of elite traits that he had. So I think that he believes he can turn people into those great players through the way that they train, the way that they work, and the standards that they have within the building. And so it's not for everybody. But the one thing I will say is I would rather be in that type of environment as a player than the type of environment where people let things go and nobody addresses anything and people don't talk to each other with clarity and intent. And so he's an interesting cat. Like he's definitely more of the old school mold of coaching, but I think that society needs a little bit more old school right now.
Always good stuff from our good friend Joshua Perry. NBC Sports also can check him out on the rally at Bally Sports. Hey, we appreciate you and look forward to talking to you in the near future, my friend.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Always good. Always good. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, JP. Always good stuff from Joshua Perry there. Rally on Bally. And like I said, NBC Sports analyst. He does all the Big Ten stuff now that they have the Saturday show.
Right.
They added that. So next time we're going to have to pick his brain about some of these up-and-coming draft prospects.
No doubt we will.
Good stuff there from Joshua Perry. We have plenty more to talk about, though, on this show. We'll get your phone calls coming up. 615-737-1045, The Zone.
It's Ramon and Kayla here for Window Nation, y'all. And it's cold outside, can get warm. It can get colder as the month of February goes on, which means your energy bills can be high. They can, the inside of your house can fluctuate. But one way to control that energy inside your house is replacing those old windows in your home with 50% of all style windows right now that Window Nation is offering, and pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. Now's the time to protect your family from the elements, lower your energy costs, and upgrade the look and feel of your home.
Yeah, we just had those winter storms that came through that we keep on talking about, but that's really firsthand knowledge maybe that you got about how your windows are not in good shape. Maybe you saw the condensation. When it then melted, you're seeing some of the water there below your window. That probably means you need new windows from Window Nation. And look, even if your home is just 10 years old, that doesn't mean your windows are in good shape or that they were even installed properly. So this is a week to go and check that out. It's going to be in the 60s. So go open your windows, see if they're opening properly. If not, check out our friends from Window Nation. They are the best when it comes down to installing. And Window Nation's professionalism is top of the notch. Their installation teams have over 10 years of experience. And look, you can just save on your energy bills. Everybody wants to do that, whether that be in the wintertime, keeping the heat in, or in the summertime, keeping that AC in. Go and check out our friends from Window Nation. It's easy. Call them at 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. Hour 3 almost in the books here this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Kayla Anderson, Ramon Foster, Robert Walsh behind the glass. And there was a big Vols win this past weekend.
Big time.
So I heard on the hardwood.
A lot of people talking about it,
A lot of people talking about it, including our buddy Ron Slay, who will join us tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure is going to have a lot of good stuff to say about it. 103-92, Tennessee taking down those Kentucky Wildcats. Now the Vols have won 4 times, Ramon, in that arena under Rick Barnes. Pretty impressive and a whole group effort.
It is. For a basketball school, that's what their specialty is supposed to be. We're only supposed to dominate this thing on the football field, and heck, here
So
they
they
are.
say.
That's what they tell us, right, Kayla? Dominant over there. And Kentucky put up a good fight, but for basketball school, I repeat, they're not supposed to be dropping it to a rival like that. Goodness, that's 2 back-to-back home losses for them too.
While we're piling on the Wildcats,
Please,
Rump Arena should be called Rump Arena because it is a dump. I don't know. I mean, big
Have
enough.
you been,
right?
by the way?
I have been.
Okay.
It is just. I don't like antiquing next to my basketball. You know what I mean? I don't like going through a strip mall to get to my basketball.
Fair.
Somewhere that was that prominent, you would think like this was the mecca of the middle of the country basketball. But instead, you're looking through vases that may or may not include someone's dead relatives. Like, it's just a bunch of antiquing. And that's what Kentucky is at this point, is an antique of their former selves.
That's disappointing. I've never been to Rupp Arena, so I don't know what it's like. But what I will say is it seems to be losing its luster a little bit.
Yeah, it does. But, I mean, you look at Cal. Cal's getting by with mediocre right now when it comes down to it. He going to put player after player into the NBA, but that group up there want to win. And when it breaks down like that, you can say what you want to about the portal. If Cal is who we think he is, he's supposed to be dominating that. He's supposed to be able to dominate the recruits also. The one and dones is all a part of his game. But you look at the results of Big Blue, right? That's low, Bert. What you call it, antiquing up there?
Oh, yeah. They got so many antique malls and just like things that just
Some people love that, but
I love it too. I love it too, but I wouldn't be going there like, honey, before we go to Rupp Arena to watch the Wildcats, you want to go look at some old 1800 furniture? Like, who the hell's getting into that?
oh, goodness. I promised we'd get to the phone lines, and Phil's been waiting patiently. I believe he's in Gallatin. Is that correct, Phil? Phil, are you with us?
Hello?
Hey, good morning,
yeah.
Phil.
What's up, Phil?
Hey, please forgive me. I got a cricket phone. That's what I get for trying to go the cheap route.
It's all right.
And one day I'm going to get on Ramon's status and have that
There you go.
AT&T stuff and all that fiber. But, yeah, I wasn't that, what was it? I wasn't that 11-year vet. I should have done what Ramon did. But, hey. You take what you can get. You get the scraps at the bottom of the tank, and you just grab. You're just glad for that.
Exactly.
Who paid you, Phil? Who paid you to come on here to say all that this morning?
Hey, Ramon, I know a lot of jokers play around with you, man, but I mean it from the heart, man. I love you guys. You guys are awesome.
We appreciate that, man. Definitely, man. Call anytime, by the way.
What you got, Phil?
So quick question, because I keep hearing mixed stuff on it, like, well, if they go for a receiver, then they're not going to be able to fix offensive line. If they go for the offensive line, we're going to slack on the receivers. Are we in that type of situation? And then the only other question is, it seems to be left tackle is a hard position to replace. What are your thoughts on that? Y'all have a blessed day.
You too, Phil.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in.
Definitely. We can discuss this coming back at the top of the hour, too, just so you know, Phil. But the left tackle spot being hard to replace, because so much is weighed upon that guy being good. If you end up getting a dud and you got to put a backup behind that eventual starter, then that also sucks. But here's the thing that you want to bank on, the fact that Coach Bill Callahan can coach guys up and develop them. Now, that may take a year or two also when you look at how that's going to come about. But it is the mindset that if you're picking 7, whoever that is, whether that be wide receiver, heck, whether that be Brock Bowers, or whether that be a left tackle, it's got to be the right pick. The one thing I will say is Coach Brian Callahan, your new head coach, was at a place where they had to pick between Panay Sewell and Jamar Chase. And they went with what they thought was the best overall prospect. Now, Panay Sewell and Jamar Chase have both killed it. There was no wrong answer to be had. But whether it's Malik Neighbors or whether it is Joe Alt, that's the conversation we're having. It is. Ain't no, like, whether it's one of those types of receivers and not Marvin Harrison Jr. or Joe Alt, that's the conversation. You have a head coach that chose the wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that,
he was on a staff at least.
Exactly. Speaking of that wide receiver, Jamar Chase, spoke about Brian Callahan at this weekend's Pro Bowl and had some raving endorsements. We'll get to that, and we'll continue this conversation. That's coming up in Hour 4. Put them up, Hour 4.
Yay.
RK-Dub here on 104.5 The Zone.
9 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. It is Super Bowl week, but the sporting world is flocking to Las Vegas, but we're going to stay on the other side of the country as Washington is putting together its staff. Got their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, whose deal fell through in Vegas. He now finds himself in our nation's capital. And Joe Witt Jr., the defensive coordinator, who follows Dan Quinn from Dallas. Pro Bowl was this weekend, seeing Eli Manning and the NFC take down Tom Brady and the AFC 64-59. But more importantly, Peyton Manning gave his thoughts on Brian Callahan and Derrick Henry potentially working together in Tennessee.
Brian Callahan would love Derrick Henry and vice versa. I know there's obviously the business side of it that comes into play, and that's for Rand Carthon and staff to decide. But Brian Callahan appreciates a good running game. His dad's coming over. His dad's the best line coach in the NFL. I know he appreciates a good back. So it'd be a great place for Derrick to continue to play, in my opinion.
Word from the sheriff there. In college coaching news, a New England legend is headed to the college football ranks. That's right. Bill Belichick's son, Steve Belichick, is set to become the Washington Huskies defensive coordinator. Steve has been in New England since 2012. 12 years of coaching in the NFL, getting his shot at calling the defense in college. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5. The Zone.
All right, it's about that time where unless you're driving and you need to have your hands on the wheel, you can put the fours up because we are in the final hour of Ramon, Kayla, and Will here on this fine Monday morning. The sun is shining, the vibes are high, and we are revved up because we've got our friends at 8th and Roast who always brew us up properly. 4 locations in Middle Tennessee, 8th Avenue, Charlotte. They've got 2 in the airport and then a great new shop here in Midtown. Coffee, cultivating community by the cup. You can also find your favorite retail bag in Kroger, Publix, and Whole Foods. Alongside our 11-year NFL veteran, we've got Ramon Foster with the Tennessee beanie on today. Represented a good win over the weekend. We got Robert Walsh behind the glass. I'm Kayla Anderson. Will Bowling will be back tomorrow as he travels back from London after seeing his Arsenal squad get a big win over Liverpool this past weekend. And we are continuing our conversation about the Tennessee Titans and possible ways that you go in this year's NFL draft. But I will start with this, you guys, because speaking of a guy who was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, when Brian Callahan was there, Jamar Chase, we are speaking of, Pro Bowler, heck of a wide receiver. We all know that. He spoke to Jim Wyatt of Titans Online this past weekend at the Pro Bowl and had some really great things to say about Callahan. No surprise there. But just some of the quotes coming out of that, called him one of his best friends, said Chase, quote, "I love him to death." He said, quote, "He's a good coach. He loves his players. We always had good conversation. I think he's a great guy, and the Titans are fortunate to have him." Also calls Brian Callahan a mastermind when it comes to setting up his players for success. Quote, "He has a great mastermind in setting up his players, the way he wants to set them up, the way he gets them to play ball." That was Jamar Chase on Brian Callahan.
That's not been a cookie cutter type of guy. Boxing yourself in, being flexible enough to know your personnel and also craft a plan to put them in the best. I'm talking about the best possible situation ever. That's what you want is, and he said it time and time again, Coach Callahan, in his interviews and how he's viewed the game. Like they may go into a week with 5 different game plans or 5 different plans that if they get off schedule, they can adjust. Like preparation, proper planning prevents poor performance. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you're trying to prevent as a coach sometimes, especially when you're the driving force. As far as being an offensive coordinator, you set the pace. And some of my conversation I was having with Coach Mack about Coach Dave McGinnis on how he sets up and structure his defense. He said he has his plan on how to, defend against certain stuff that's their bread and butter things. I was like, well, is there ever a time as a defensive coordinator or coach that you somewhat set the pace? Like, you don't unless you know you have the number. It's like you're more reactionary on the defensive side of the ball. And when it comes down to the offensive coordinator and the offense, you are the pace setter. That's why fans and players also get so upset whenever the plan is bad or you've been put in a bad spot. Coach, why are we running against this front? They've stuffed us 3 times in a row. We need a different outlook curve. We're going to run 24 power. Put it in a different set. Undress the defense a little bit so we can be successful. I say a lot of the times, why fight City Hall sometimes when you can walk around the corner and go see the counselor that may actually listen to you. That's what you want as a team and as an offensive coordinator, to where if we know we're banging our head against the wall, then we need another option. I feel like that's what this offense hasn't had a lot of the time. So hearing Jamar Chase say that, and Joe Burrow say that, and Peyton Manning has had nothing but high praise for him. But with all has been said, I will always bring us back to zero. All of this is cute. Yep. He's done all this stuff in other places. Can Coach Callahan, Brian Callahan, do that here in Nashville? That's going to be the ultimate test for this fan base. As much as I can say I love the fact that they've hired this guy and the staff looks, as complete and as good as you've seen any NFL staff be on the offensive and defensive side of it. What matters now is the results. What matters now is the players. What matters now is wins and losses, right? And, of course, the main catalyst in this is going to be Will Levis and how he develops too.
Yeah, it is. And, look, his track record with quarterbacks has been good, but this is a different situation, and it will be handled in a different way, like all these quarterbacks have. And that brings us, again, to this conversation about, okay, then you have a guy like this who listens to his players, who is going to get the most out of them. And in the past, while he's not the sole, person for drafting Jamar Chase over, who was it, Penei Sewell?
Penei Sewell, yeah.
But he, I'm sure, had a lot of input in that and was able to help develop some of these guys on offense. So with saying that, okay, what are you doing at 7? And do you think that the mindset for this coaching staff moving forward in Rand Carthon is any different now with the type of head coach now that you have?
I will say, and I'm staying on this soapbox for as long as I possibly can until it happens. 7 is such a pressurized spot to be in, because you're just right out of the top 5. The sure hits would probably be top 5. Top 5 guys need to be guys get off the bus and they're walking Hall of Fame potential guys, right? They're supposed to be. Caleb Williams will be expected to be that type of guy. Marvin Harrison Jr., that type of guy, right? And there's others that are in that conversation too. I'm not sure what Jaden Daniels is going to be, but he's going to be a walking starter. The time that he gets drafted, he is the starter, right? And so 7 is just in that same conversation with the same amount of weight, right? And my soapbox that I'm staying upon until it actually happens or doesn't is to take that 7th overall pick for somebody that I hope has a need out of this world and move me back to 12. That way I can pick up an extra pick. That way I can steadily build this roster up as much as I need to, because to pick between the two, whether that be Joe Alt from what a lot of people are saying when it comes down to what this team needs, right? But then, of course, Malik Neighbors is there. He's projected to run a 4.4. He's 6 foot and has been, I'm talking about a magnet for the football. Another wide receiver, too, Rome Odunze.
Out of Washington.
Out of Washington is another guy that's going to be a speed guy. They have him listed as 6'3", 215, and is projected to run a sub 4.4. He's supposed to be a 4.37 type of guy, of a high 4.3. Now, imagine this. This team has been talking about speed. This team has been talking about getting down the field, and that's one way to do it. And if you believe that Will Levis has the yarn and you believe in Coach Callahan being capable of developing this group, heck, like I said, we're talking about Joe Alt a lot, right? And the idea that this team has to go after a left tackle. They have to, or at least get some better protection. But if you have a coach that can develop NPF at left, and then you go find a right tackle, right? Or you sign back Chris Hubbard, or Radens move out to right tackle. Like, I've seen guys, including myself, get better because of coaching. And if you can save some money, and even while planning for next year with development of the O-line and tight end play too, because a lot of coaches will tell you, and Coach Callahan said this in his presser, the protection of the quarterback ain't just the O-line.
It's extended.
It's and it starts with the quarterback
it does.
too. Not bailing out of the pocket when you need to. I'm not just saying Will Levis did that, but not bailing out of the pocket when protection is there. You're paid to take those hits and stay and deliver the ball in the pocket. The tight ends and max protection, that matters. Running backs in the backfield protecting, that matters. Wide receivers in their routes, the timing of your routes and that matters also. So sacks and protection isn't an O-line specific problem. It's a team problem, and the offensive coordinator is involved with that too, okay, knowing what guys can and cannot do. So we're discussing the 7th overall pick between a wide receiver and an offensive lineman, specifically left tackle. It's a dang if you do, dang if you don't situation. Again, the Detroit Lions and the Cincinnati Bengals both picked right.
Yes.
Right? Penei Sewell has been a dog.
It worked
and so
out
has
well.
Jamar Chase. Is Malik Neighbors that guy at 7 that you feel comfortable with getting more weapons? Because here's the thing. All quarterbacks, they desire, love, need weapons. And that right there
Facts.
is more beneficial sometimes than actually picking that left tackle. I'm not saying that it can't be Joe Alt, but if you believe in Coach Bill Callahan and the fact that you can move back and say, man, we'll try to get a left tackle next year in the draft, that's a young guy, and you pick up a 3rd and a 4th round pick because you move back, I live in that world where I'll take Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbor.
Yeah, and look, if anything, you feel more confident now perhaps because Brian Callahan is your head coach and he has a track record of helping develop players, and you're seeing success in the offenses that he's been in. So if anything, it makes you feel a little better if that is the case. And look, they do need a 3rd round pick. So I think anything is up for grabs right now.
About need.
They need. I think we're on the same page with that. So I think anything is out there right now. Look, I'm not going to be disappointed if they take Joe Alt. I won't be disappointed because I think he is a guy that you could have for a really long time. But you got to feel more comfortable now with who is taking over as head coach in terms of offense. And if you take that wide receiver that could be a game changer, you can't get mad at it.
And we'll discuss more, but what is a good left tackle or lineman in general, too? Because everybody wants a Joe Thomas or Tyron Smith or something like that. But what is actually a good tackle in this league, a good lineman? We'll talk more about that, too, as we discuss the coaches, too.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. Plus, like Ramon Foster said, who is the most crucial hire for Brian Callahan on this coaching staff? We'll get that discussion going. Take your calls at 615-737-1045. It's RKW on Ramon, Kayla, and Will here on 1045 The Zone. Just repeating myself.
When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of time we homeowners pretend we do not see the warning signs. We're afraid of what we're going to hear. This is especially true with waterproofing and foundation repair. It could be something big that needs to be fixed right away, or maybe a small problem now that'll become bigger later, or it could be nothing at all. Bottom line is we don't know, and we certainly don't want to be sold something we do not need. We need a peace of mind, and United Structural Systems is the company to give you that. They have over 25,000 100% satisfied residential customers, and here's how they make that happen. When USS comes out to the house, you're going to get a problem solver who provides a peace of mind to their customers. You're not going to get someone who is worried about meeting a sales quota or upselling the next big thing, but someone there to educate you and help you understand what is happening with your home. At USS, their only measure of success is how satisfied the homeowner is and not a closing ratio. Homeowners trust USS, keeping homes dry and stable for over 25 years. They've been serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. And you can reach them online at USSTN.com or call them 615-488-7855.
We hope you're having a good time here this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will as we are getting close to wrapping up the show. But we still have a lot to talk about. We've talked a little draft. What do you do at pick number 7? Do you go wide receiver? Do you go offensive tackle? And Ramon Foster brought up a good point. What defines a good or a excellent offensive tackle or just lineman in general in the NFL draft? And that's something that you'd probably be able to break down pretty well.
Yeah, Kayla, it's always fascinating who's good and who's not. I think you got to go back to above the line or below the line. And the ones who are way above the line are your exceptional Trent Williams, Joe Thomas, Bakhtiari out of Green Bay, Tyron Smith. You understand that those dudes are elite type of guys. Laramie Tunsil, right? So what makes a good offensive lineman to me? Physicality, smarts, and consistency. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to have those things. Like if I know at the end of the day, I consistently know where I'm going to be at my point. I consistently know what it's going to take for me to get the job done. I consistently know where my deficiencies are as a player. Like, that makes a good offensive lineman right there. To me, I didn't think Dylan Radunz was just that bad. I think he needs a lot of growth, but I understand what his limitations are also. And the same honestly can be said about Brewer. I think that's why Brewer tested out so well for PFF in their score. He was the highest rated starting lineman here for the Tennessee Titans this year. And that's because Brewer consistently did what you needed him to. Does Brewer get pushed back in bull rush? Yes, he does. Does Brewer have limitations as far as moving bodies at times? Yes, he does. But I consistently know he's going to get on his block, and at worst, he's going to get a stalemate, and there's a couple of them he might get pushed back on. And he's going to need assistance when it comes down to one-on-one blocks at times. But that's why you have guards on both sides to help and guide you in those moments too. What's bad, again, I think we saw what Dilla looked like this year, right? That's consistently bad. But I know this, if you're consistently like that, then you'll probably be out of a job. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that you have to bank on. And, of course, less than 5 sacks on the season. I think that's solid. Less mental errors when it comes down to you doing your job and knowing how to do it. But, of course, being proficient when it comes down to run blocking. Those are traits of good offensive linemen to me. Consistently knowing where my guy is going to be on each play, mentally being focused in, and having a knack for physicality. That's always going to be the telltale sign of how you continue to develop and what's my expectations on game day.
And that's well said. And that kind of segues us nice into the whole, okay, who's going to be the crucial hire on Brian Callahan's staff? Because I think we can both agree, and maybe you're different on this, but overall, I think you have to look at the offensive line and say that's a huge hire. That's a crucial hire. And I think it's a hire that it looks like they got right. And we spoke to Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com earlier in the show. You can always go back at the end of the show today, listen on Apple Podcasts. Incredible interview.
It was.
She's been around him for a while there with Cleveland, and the development, the type of things she said in terms of what Bill Callahan is able to do is whoever you get, even if you get a guy in the first round who is going to be a starter, it feels like they're going to be in really good hands. And then some of those guys here that may have not developed yet that need to. Yeah. I think this is the biggest hire for him so far. On the staff.
Absolutely. I think so, too. Just on the glaring black eye that they've had as far as protections go. And, of course, I'll say this, too. Having somebody that knows how to craft a game plan, I think is going to be bigger. Bill Callahan being the offensive line coach is big. But Tyke Tolbert being the developmental wide receiver coach is also going to play a part. You get something out of Traylon. You know, if you believe in Kyle Phillips, you get something out of him this year. NWI, depending on what he does in free agency. And these are just guys who we're familiar with, because I couldn't tell you who they're going to sign when it comes down to free agency and who you're hoping for.
Which is, what, a month away, we said?
The Burt just told us a second ago, about a month to go. When it comes down to the draft. Because that run, play action, I think, got old here. It was somewhat expected with how you did that too. And it just showed your flaws way too often in that. You knew if you got good yards on first down, you was probably going to come with a play action at some point in time under the last two offensive coordinators here. I think you will see a forward-thinking, down the field, sideline-to-sideline style of offense. That's one thing I did notice that Cincinnati was doing. They just put the ball in the athlete's hand. If you think Traylon Burks here in Nashville is a guy that should probably have the ball quick and be able to just steamroll guys because of his size, because he has good enough speed and agility, then that should probably be a part of his game instead of just trying to force it downfield. Those are 50-50 balls. Like, no matter how you break it down, going down the field like that when it's just a one-on-one, beat my guy and not scheming it up, in this league of the NFL, DBs are good. Defensive coordinators are even better with scheming up against that when that's your tendency too. So as much as I want to put on Traylon Burks to be better, stay healthy, all those types of things, you also got to play to his strength. And that's what I think Brian Callahan would bring. But when you look at how you hide certain stuff, if you do just so happen to go with a wide receiver in the first round, that's where I'm trusting a guy like Bill Callahan, because he's not afraid. He shouldn't be afraid to step up in his tenure in the NFL. He should be able to say, hey, my guy is like this. Or, hey, if it's NPF at left tackle, I don't know if he's going to hold up that lone, coach. You might want to put a tight end over here to help guide and protect the quarterback's backside. It's those types of conversations I think that have to be had. And I'm not saying Coach Hotelling, the last offensive line coach here, had those deficiencies in this game. But I'll say this: when we transitioned from having the guy before Coach Munchak was our offensive line coach, the plan was a little different. Our voices were a little louder when it came down to what we like to do. And when you have the respect and coaches know you know what you're talking about, that's a difference when it comes down to how you run and operate your offense too.
Well, you mentioned Jason Hotelling, and look, I'm not going to get down on any of these guys. Like, you know, they all have certain positives about them and some things that definitely did not work out. And before that, it was Keith Carter. And I just don't think either of those guys, in terms of what I saw out of this offensive line throughout the season, there was no progress really. And there was not even with certain players like development. Like, I didn't see that out of either of these coaches. And that's why, again, like the Bill Callahan hire, you're hoping at least from his track record, is going to be so crucial, because that is such a big part of it and is still a big part of this line with the remaining pieces. And you can then say whoever they draft or whoever they get here in free agency, that's part of it as well. Another thing that I'm looking at, Ramon, and this is something that also I just didn't see a ton of development over the past couple of years at this position, but the DBs. Yeah. I mean, this is a position that is crucial in the NFL. They're the quarterbacks of the defense. It's a position where you got to be really smart. You got to know what's going on. Yeah, you have to have all the physical traits, but you also have to have the mind there too. And development is crucial. And I think with having a guy like Steve Jackson, that they have, Teron Davenport first came out with this report that they've hired him as the new DBs coach. Obviously, is coming over from the Atlanta Falcons as a secondary coach, spent some time here in Tennessee before. I think this is going to be a crucial hire, because you have to see continued development at this position. There is still Roger McCreary, where we've seen leaps and bounds with him, but I think he's just a gem, right?
Definitely.
But there's a lot of guys that need to continue to be developed, and you're thinking they're probably going to draft someone too.
Yeah, they have to. Of course, this team is depleted when it comes down to the amount of quality talent. That's another thing. It's like you can have guys that you know and you love, and you say, man, this guy plays ball. But when you look at the teams now that are left in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, and even in the Final Four, at each level you could name a guy that was a dog, right? At each level, from the offensive line to the wide receivers, you can name somebody at each level. The quality of, let's just call them A players. This team has been lacking, I feel like, in the last couple of years with the quality of A type of players. So drafting those types of guys, Kayla, that are your own and turning them into those elite players. I know San Francisco went out and got, of course, McCaffrey and Trent Williams, but they also had a baseline of what was good for them. And that's why I think there has been lacking here. Like, you love Jeff, but where's the middle linebacker, right? Again, we can name Jeff or Harold Landry, but who you love on the back end. Armani's a name you know, but is Armani he's not Bayard, right? Bayard was here. And then on the offensive side, nobody on the O-line that you love. The guy you love is a rookie. Just finished his rookie year. Okay? And at the wide receiver position, it's a guy that you had to go grab from another team, DeAndre Hopkins. So when you look at why you were not a good team this year, you got to somewhat look at the Cowboys that were playing in this movie too. They weren't the guys that you say were elite enough, or you had coaches that were good enough to be able to scheme up wins for you. Now, I know they were closer than the record suggested. There were some one-loss games that you just said to yourself, God, if we'd have had this extra possession, or if there was an extra 2 minutes left on the clock, right? But that also plays to be a separator to where those elite players at those different layers, like different levels, are the ones that helped you lose those games for other teams. You don't have a Myles Garrett. You don't have a T.J. Watt on that side of it. You don't have those types of players that Nico Collins has emerged as a player for the Houston Texans right now because your secondary was so depleted that he was able to run all over you. And, of course, you love what Will Levis is going to be. I think you see the template there. But if we look at the San Francisco 49ers and also the Kansas City Chiefs, you look at both sides of the ball and you say they have a better surplus of A players than we have here in Nashville. And that's where I think you actually start to rebuild at. Is that those types of players. You know Chris Jones is there, right? You look at the young offensive line that Kansas City has. No, and here was another thing. I forgot who brought this up to us. It might have been Kevin Carter. And when you look at how this franchise now, the front office and scouting and Rand and Burke Nihil and the type of players that Coach Callahan and his crew is going to want, and on the other side of the ball, of course, what the defense is going to request too. Sometimes we're talking about picking that 7th overall pick, right? And you got to make the hard decision if Brock Bowers is there, if Olu Fashanu is there, if, honestly, Jaden Daniels or somebody is there, or Malik Neighbors. You have to go get the guy that you know fits what you want to do in the future. Sometimes it might be Jamar Chase and say, you know what, we'll figure out the O-line. And Cincinnati has, for the most part, if their quarterback can stay healthy, right? And his was, I think, an elbow or wrist thing this year. And that may be what it turns into more than, hey, we need. You never want to be drafting or building a team based off of need. We mentioned earlier in talking to Mary Kay Cabot, the amount of players, good players on the O-line that Cleveland has. And these are all names, you know, DeJuan Jones was a rookie this year. Jack Conklin, of course, he was injured, but you had DeJuan Jones. You got DeJuan Jones because you could, because you had Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills, and then, of course, James Hudson was a draft pick last year, Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio. These are quality players at a position that you just happen to have plenty of. And then that's not even mentioning the receivers for Cleveland, right? Like, these are the things that good teams do. If they have quality guys at multiple positions, so that if there is an injury or a drop-off here or there, well, guess what? The ship continues on. You never want to be drafted from a need basis, and I think that's what's been happening here more often than not, and that's why you're stuck in this predicament of changing head coaches, the back-to-back losing seasons, and the firing of a coach.
We even saw it last year, and I keep, going back to this and being, oh my goodness, we saw an all offensive draft. Because they were so, I know, but they were so behind. And so many failures in years before in picking the right guys and developing them and having them be ready, that they were playing catch up. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of in a way still doing it, Ramon, this next draft. I'm not saying you're going to go offensive, but because of what happened in the past, you're making up for it now, but at least you know it feels like they're in better hands in terms of how they're handling this moving forward, and you've got a different type of mind on this coaching staff now, as Brian Callahan comes from a place where they drafted pretty dang well and hit well.
Absolutely. And the other side of it, too, one of my sources just sent me an article. It's very unique because it was a conversation we had before was, and there's 3 franchises that come to mind right now. Of course, the 2 I just mentioned, San Francisco, where they had Jimmy G and Trey Lance.
Right.
But Brock Purdy, they still drafted the quarterback
Mr.
and turned
Irrelevant.
into the guy. And still draft for what you want to, despite what the paper tells you to, right? And then, of course, Alex Smith was fine in Kansas City.
Yeah.
But they still went with the 11th pick to go draft Patrick Mahomes. There was no need to really replace Alex Smith. He was good enough. But as a franchise, you want to push yourself over the top. Now let's look up north a little bit. Let's go to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Green Bay had no need to draft Jordan Love. You got a Hall of Fame player there. And people thought it was idiotic, right? And it probably was somewhat to say, hey, golly, we need a wide receiver. And now you look at what Aaron Rodgers is, and you look where now Jordan Love has become the guy, so much so that they're talking about extending him because of the run he went on in the playoffs. When you're drafting from a need basis all the time, you're steadily chasing.
Absolutely.
Green Bay's in a spot right now where they can just pick up and roll, and now they can build around Jordan Love so much so, and they're more stable than they actually thought they were because he had time to grow. Had time to figure out who he's going to be as a player, and now they're going to benefit from that if all things show his projections are down the line to being one of those elite players, and he showed that this year. You know what I'm saying? So, again, if they draft the wide receiver this year in the 7th overall pick, you just got to kind of look at that and say, this is a group, and of course, this is a group that knows what they want to do and how they're going to get to that point. And it's going to be frustrating to look at some of this rebuild, I'm sure, but I actually trust the plans that they have in place to actually get this group more forward-thinking and more productive on the field because that's what's going to matter.
Well, and that's the way the NFL is going.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking to Joshua Perry earlier in the last hour, and I think one of the things that stood out to me is kind of the old school way that Mike Vrabel operates under, right? It is the Bill Belichick way. And you're looking at the coaches right now that don't have jobs. And obviously Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel stick out because those are the two names you heard a lot of that, they were going to land somewhere. And in so many ways, you're really looking at it and being like, I don't know if that's going to work many places anymore because it is a new type of NFL. And you said it the best. They need to move forward. They need to adapt. That's something that hasn't really happened here in the last 2 years. And you trust that this is probably the route they're going to go in, and they have the right guy to do it. And that's why this coaching staff is crucial, too, because you're looking at the hires that he's making, Ramon.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this looks like they're putting together the right amount of veterans in the league as coaches and guys with fresh ideas. And I think that that's going to be huge.
It is going to be huge. And if you haven't heard that OTP with Chad Brinker, who was
check that
also part of that group that brought in Jordan Love while Aaron Rodgers was there, you will understand some of his mindset behind the moves they plan on making here. And we also had a OTP with Rand Carthon that's coming out this week. Also, great, phenomenal conversation. Mike Keep help set all that up for us. And Rand, he went and divulged a lot of good stuff, man. So both of those OTPs from front office guys, Chad Brinker's out already, and Rand's will be out this week also.
And where can you find those?
Anywhere you can find podcasts,
Perfect.
OTP podcasts, not hard to find, official Titans podcast.
All right. Well, we wrap up the show. When we return, we'll get to your final thoughts. 615-737-1045 if you want to chime in. We'll be back on Ramon, Kayla, and Will here on 1045 The Zone.
It's Ramon Foster for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Y'all, it's Valentine's season, and love is in there, okay? So find your perfect match this month with guess who? Hiller. Yes. Where you can get a free UV light when you purchase a select new HVAC system for your home, or get a free whole home surge protection when you buy a new whole home generator. Trust me, those are clutch with the storms that we have in this area. Your lights will be on while everybody be in the darkness. A little bragging camp for you right there, okay? If you do choose to go to Hiller for that. Or get 50% off a Diskeller when you buy a new tankless water heater. Those are clutch too, because it keeps your water clean and without all that sediment in it. But you'll never be more in love with your home when you find the perfect match at happyhiller.com. If you need anything done around your house, whether that's plumbing, heating, cooling, or electrical, visit the website that I use often, okay? And that's happyhiller.com.
Welcome back into Ramon, Kayla, and Will as we wrap up the show. Been a really fun show. I feel like a lot of good conversation this morning. Kay Cabot at 7:20, she talked about the hire of Bill Callahan as the new offensive line coach here in Tennessee. Joshua Perry bringing us some really good knowledge when it comes to the NCAA and their future, or its future, I should say. You can find all of those conversations after the show wraps up on Apple Podcasts. We will tweet out that link on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. What was your kind of get from today in terms of just, Kay Cabot and her conversation about Bill Callahan and what he's going to bring?
Hearing that you poached I'm talking about a high-ranking coach from Cleveland, and that ain't even me piling on Cleveland, but I don't think you guys understand, if it all goes through right with Coach Bill Callahan, how big of a hire that is. Think about the good times that you've had here in Nashville as far as offensive, production. It was when Taylor Lewan and his group was, even with Quentin Spain, run left. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about what that is. And I know I'm a former offensive lineman myself, so I'm always going to watch that spot. But good teams have good offensive lines. And to hear that you got a great coach coming to Nashville, I think was probably the highlight of the day right there.
Yeah, it was really encouraging just to hear what she had to say. And I know that we all kind of know what Bill Callahan's resume entails, but to kind of get a firsthand look at what it was like there and really how devastated Cleveland Brown fans are that they lost Bill Callahan. I think she said that it's one of those positions in terms of a position coach. She's never seen that much like sadness with a coach leaving that's a position coach until then, right? And you're right. What's the other great one that you would have loved to seen hired here? Mike Munchak.
Munch, we immediately felt the absence of Munch. Yeah. And I love the guy that was that replaced Munch, Sean Surratt. We call him Sweet Feet. Sweet Feet was good for us for a while, but we had an injury that year, if I'm not mistaken. It just it was a wild ride for us in my last year in 2019 when Munch wasn't there. And I think you saw the direct benefit of Denver's offensive line too in that time. So I can speak first person on having a guy leave like that, and to actually have a guy come into your city was exciting for us. I was nervous as heck when Munch came.
I'm sure you were. Different change, right?
Expectation changes. Mm-hmm. Kayla, I don't think you want the expectation changes so much so because you have a guy that everybody else has revered as the top of the top. And so if you're operating at a 5, right, you now have to start operating at a 7 and higher because the expectation is just going to be there so much higher. And, of course, you're going to be judged accordingly. And nothing solidified my worth as a pro than having Munch come in, adjust to his method and his style, while also being accepted by him, too. And I think we all were looking to be accepted by him because Hall of Famer – hell of a coach, and I'm a starter on this group. That means I must be good. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, that's what it solidified for you. So this group, no matter, I don't know if they're going to sign back Brewer or bring back Dillard or whatever the case may be, but the eyes now watching that group is totally different.
And y'all better step up your game.
Yeah.
If you're a player and you know that you have a coach like him coming in, you better take advantage of it, is all I'll say. Because there's not many opportunities you get to work with a guy like that and to make yourself better. Mm-hmm. And you got to take advantage of it. Okay, so this is who we have so far. Now, all of this has not been made official, Ramon, but this is what the staff looks like up to this date. So obviously you have Brian Callahan as the head coach, offensive coordinator Nick Holes coming over from Jacksonville, Denard Wilson, the DC, coming over from the Ravens, where, by the way, he also has extensive DB knowledge, which I think is going to be really beneficial. Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach, Tyke Tolbert, wide receivers, and then just recently, Teron Davenport reporting that Frank Bush is going to be heading up the linebackers group and Steve Jackson, the DB. So still some more holes to fill, but still a good look in terms of what this team is shaping up to be. Let's go out really quick, though, to Josh in Nashville. He has an idea in terms of the the trade situation in terms of the draft and trading back. What do you got, Josh?
Well, I'm glad to have the expert on the line, Ramon. Looking at 1-7, if we traded that back, what do you think about picking up maybe Kingsley or Patrick Paul, maybe Jordan Morgan, in addition to a center or a wide receiver, instead of just one guy, pick 7?
Yeah, and that's what I've been somewhat suggesting. To be honest with you, I'm not huge on Jordan Morgan. He didn't have the greatest on-field performance at the Senior Bowl, but I am of the mindset that, look, there are other tackles that are there. Amarius Mims is another. J.C. Natham, I think, will be there. Tali Fuanga will be there. Some think even Olu Fashanu will be a guy that's somewhat available. You have options there to move back. Like I said, if you can do business with one of those middle teen teams as far as from 10 to about 15, I live in that world to pick up another third rounder. I would.
Why is that third rounder so important, I think, for this team? Just for the fact that I think you need a wide receiver, you need a cornerback, and you kind of want to get those guys in those first 3 rounds.
Because most of the experts are saying the back end of this draft, after the top 100, there's a nosedive. There is a tank. I mean, just like a nosedive of talent, because so many of those underclassmen went back to school because of NIL, or they didn't get the draft grade that they thought they should have. So if I can pick as many as I possibly can within the top 100, give me all the picks. So if I got to move from 7 to about 14, 15, if somebody's willing to deal with me, I will give me 2 3s, your first, and a 4th. Oh, we're cooking with gas in. I know it might not be the most realistic approach to it, and some teams just may stick where they are because everybody knows this draft from rounds middle of the 4th to the 7th is not great.
Not as good as you want it to be,
Not
right?
as good as you want it to be.
Exactly. We appreciate all of our guests today. Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com, Joshua Perry of NBC Sports. We appreciate you, the listeners, for tuning in. Our whole crew will be back at it tomorrow on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. But until then, always watch what your Twitter fingers are doing.
Absolutely, because at all times, your Twitter fingers and your mic is always hot. It's Ramon Foster for Secure Lawn, man. And Secure Lawn is a company I use and trust, man. But here's the thing about it. They want to focus on prime. I know what you're thinking. Not the coach's time, okay? But prime. And you're probably asking yourself, what does it mean to their team? It means having their team members properly trained and prepared to provide a prime service, supplying the customer, that's you, with expectations that would make them lifelong customers, okay? You want your green, the envy of the neighborhood? Well, guess what? Go to Secure Lawn, okay? Here's the best thing about them. They are local, and they've been servicing Middle Tennessee for over 20 years. They are punctual, and you don't have to sign any contracts. If you don't like them, end it. Call them. Say, hey, it's over with. My grass ain't the greenest in the neighborhood. I'm going to go find somebody else. I guarantee you this. They will come by and try to make it right with you as much as they possibly can. So as the weather starts to change, get Secure Lawn over to your house to spray some of their awesome sauce on your lawn to kill those pesky weeds. You can call them at 615-893-8455 or go to securelawn.com.